Hi, I'm May, and this is an Othias.
You're going to pick me up?
I'm not even going to try that.
Put me in the light box?
Not even a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I just could see him, posing in the light box, though.
Yeah, like a magician.
Yeah.
Okay. Today's a Q&A. Mm-hmm. We do these once a year, although if you're remembering that one happened more recently, that's because we did a special one with Rob, because we gave Rob our time.
It's true.
So usually we have one of these as a way to catch up for the year.
It's true.
Because
around this time of year, too.
Yeah, a documentary every other week is rough. Mm-hmm. And then this year especially, we have travel plans to sort of help bridge the last gap in the 1911 episodes.
That we do.
That have been going on for a while. Everybody says, when are you going to do 1911? They're going to be really sad when the 1911 episode starts with, all right, we covered everything leading up to the development of this, so here's 5 minutes. Now we're in the 1911 because we've done many episodes on the development of the 1911.
The road to the 1911 has been long and is still going.
It's just, final hump is the 1909, which we have thankfully been able to get arrangements to work with.
We're going to figure out if we're going to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so this is part of that, though. We got to have that time to work.
Yeah, so now we're doing the Q&A.
Right.
And there's a lot of Q's, and hopefully we have all the A's.
Yeah, they're going to tear up our A's.
Wow.
Well, we started filming at 10 o'clock at night.
No, we technically started at 9, and then we had to use the restroom, and then we paused, and then here we go again. Okay,
We had to use the restroom together.
Yes, holding hands. That's how we do it here.
Did I tell you? I have, on one occasion, been interrupted at the urinal by someone who recognized me.
Yeah, you have talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Guys, let me wash my hands.
Let me finish the stream.
Before you shake them.
All right, question number 1. What is the most surprising gun-related thing, experience, feature, marking, whatever, that you have come across? Well, most of my experience has actually been with the show, but I have to say the Pedersen device for me personally. Because when we were first handed it, it looks complicated. You expect some complication with it, but then actually seeing you take it apart on that tarp in the middle of the field with the owner there, and then seeing Bruno's animation of it, I still look at it thinking, how does this thing actually work and keep itself together? Oh no, it turns out it actually does beat itself to death, kind of.
There's no room for
There's no room for failure.
Right. I'd say probably the most surprising thing overall for me is how freaking complicated most repeating shotguns are.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't consider what it took to have that big of a cartridge moving around and all these other safety features. Mm-hmm. But the Remington 10.
Yeah.
And I know it's a Pedersen gun. I guess it's both Pedersens,
Yeah,
aren't they?
they're both Pedersens.
Yeah.
You just gave the same answer as me. I just want to point out.
The Remington 10 is just nightmare feel. And then honestly, you go, oh, okay, but the Winchester, right? And the Winchester 93 is a very straightforward firearm that I would put roughly equivalent to like a Marlin, you know? Mm-hmm. But the Winchester 97 is unfathomably full of extra stuff just to make it work. Mm-hmm. And everybody gives Browning credit for the 97.
Yeah.
He didn't. He designed the 93 and then he effed off. And then Winchester had to go, hold on, it needs to do so many more things. And they just cram this stuff in there.
Oh, God.
And it is buck wild in that gun.
Okay. Cool.
I just remember Bruno cursing on the animation and me just looking over his shoulder going, good Lord. So,
I was glad I'm not you.
Yeah.
Poor Bruno.
Yeah. We should do a Q&A with Bruno.
Oh, yeah, that'd be probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Y'all would be here forever, though.
Oh, yeah, he talks.
Not just, he can talk. He's good at bouncing conversations with other people, so he would get you going.
Oh, yeah, no.
And the two of you would just spiral, and then they'd both just die here in the room.
We need to do a Bruno Q&A. Okay.
Next question. How does the front cylinder stop on a Webley revolver work? I'm assuming it's a revolver. It somehow comes up with the trigger when the trigger is still being pulled.
Yeah, it just has a slip-off point with a spring. We didn't depict it well in the animation on that episode, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. We've gotten a lot better at revolvers since then.
And Bruno, too.
The Webleys are going to get redone, so
yes.
We will have that answer in full graphical detail for you sometime later, as soon as I can sort out how to do it. But I think some people have noticed we walked up the Tranters, we walked up the RFC. There's going to be some other old Webleys showing up soon.
Yep.
And so I'm almost all the way there for having access to the commercial pieces I need to sort of do the prelude to the Webley and then do the military Webley interspersed with the civilian environment Webley, because a lot of people underestimate how different those can be, actually.
So we're going to go from being the all 32 channel to the Martini channel to the Webley channel.
No, we'll just dabble them here and there. But I think a lot of people see the Webley and they're, oh, the top break.
Top break.
Or solid frame. Old one solid frame, no one top break. And on the solid frame front, it's pretty fair because the solid frame centerfire Webleys and rimfire Webleys are basically all Trantor-derived lockworks, right?
You're getting into the weeds at this
I know,
point.
I am.
Okay.
But when you get to the top break, there's actually quite a few variations of Webley, and I kind of can't wait to talk about them.
Okay. Top break?
No, top break.
Top break. Okay. Move the cursor.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. I'm thinking of the Portuguese Vigueiro when I asked this question. Okay.
Okay.
Oh God, that's been some time. What would you choose?
I'm thinking about how much my bottom itches while I read this question.
No. Maybe. What would you choose? A Mauser 98 action and a clip-fed Mannlicher rifle, or a Schlegel milk action on a Mauser 98 rifle?
Go, May. Pick.
I kind of like the Schlegel milk action on a Mauser 98 rifle, personally, because the Schlegel milk actions can be real smooth.
For sporting use, yes.
Yeah.
There's really not that big of a difference between the two militarily in peacetime or in limited warfare when the ammunition supply is good. Mm-hmm. When ammunition supply goes bad, I'm going with the Mauser. It has a better proven track record for dealing with, and we're thinking Mauser 98 specifically.
That's what he said, yeah.
Yeah, it has a better setup for dealing with failed casings.
Just for that supporting of the rim.
Yeah, overcharged ammo, case failures, just all the sorts of things that ammo causes. Mm-hmm. Really common at full warfare. And this is something we kind of talked about before in the sort of Q&As and sidetrack stuff, is that we, in the modern era, really, really underestimate how bad wartime production ammo was. So having gas mitigation and security of strength is critical. It's why you and I both praise the Arisaka so much.
It's true.
Because it's exactly the gun that you want to have a grenade go off inside the chamber. And then it kind of comes down from there in that era. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what else you got?
Let's see. Can you talk about the popularity of the Gehendra Martini Henry?
Well, it's not a Martini Henry.
Yeah, it's just Gehendra, right?
Well, the Gehendra, oh boy, this gets weird. And I've actually been I've stuck a toe in this. Suze weirdly got curious about them.
It's true, she did.
As a matter of fact, that's why that Gehendra is right there.
Hey!
That little carbine. Suze started digging in on the Gehendra issue just because she was curious. And she was informing me, so I only have secondhand on this. But it was a Nepalese rifle. Mm-hmm. It may or may not have been a Nepalese design or derivation of a British market rifle. Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple claims. I'm going to tell you guys, it is very frequent that somebody tells me that there's this vague thing descended from this other thing, and I go look, and it's not true. It could be, it could not be. I don't know. I'd have to look at a lot more single-shot rifles to be sure of where the Gehendra came from.
So do you think that might be why people think they're popular, because people think it does descend from the Martini?
It's tricky. The Gehendra has... Anyway, the reason they're popular, because you did ask about the popularity
Yeah, that's
of it.
what I'm asking.
They're popular because they're dirt cheap, because they were pulled out of Nepal, and only the guys that really care about the British derived history, not even British service history, buy them. So they're rough. They're not really shootable. There's questions about how much they can take out of Martini ammo. Like regular 450 Martini may or may not be safe in them. Mm-hmm. It's all debated on the metallurgy. And so there's a lot of doubt on those rifles, and they're in terrible shape, usually.
Okay.
So that's why the people that do like them because they're cheap, because of all those reasons above. Most people don't want to get into a Vetterli Carcano situation.
Oh, no.
Times 5, you know?
I'm good.
In theory, they're a very strong design, and they're actually quite beautiful, which is, again, why at a low price point they move. Mm-hmm. In terms of actually doing an episode on them, I would like to.
Yeah, one day.
But as I understand it, and this, again, is told secondarily to me, I haven't gone and made the necessary introductions and emails, there are currently 2 gentlemen who are arguing furtively with each other about the history of them. And they're both working from very limited source material because so little of this was written down. And even if it was, there was a political coup at the time. And it is a huge mess to actually find facts on that gun. Anybody that's really big into them and knows of primary sources, by all means, forward them to me. But anyway,
Next question. What was the significance of the Remington New Army?
Well, it was a revolver.
Yeah.
And they were available commercially during the war. Mm-hmm. And the government bought some. I think that's the significance
of them, yeah. I'm not really sure what else there is to it.
I assume you mean like the significance of the design or the evolution that it provided for the firearms world. And the answer is 0. There's 0 evolutionary significance to it whatsoever.
Insignificant.
Yes, the Remington New Army is a derivative waste of mental space.
Okay.
I mean, the gun's fine. It's a strong...
Tell me how you really feel about it.
Well, it's better than anything Colt had at the time.
Yeah.
It is. Just for the top strap alone. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing is everybody goes, because it's a U.S.-centric market, everybody goes, oh my God, Remington had a top strap. And you're going... British revolvers did that since before. Mm-hmm. Like you could get a triple action top strap cartridge revolver out of Europe at the time that thing was coming out. Like, I mean, granted, it's a very proto cartridge revolver. Maybe we're talking more like 1860 is when you start to see usable cartridge revolvers. Although not really, because look at the pinfires. 1858 left for show. Now it doesn't have a top strap, but that was solved pretty quick by a lot of people. So like a pinfire, although the power's not there.
Yeah.
So in terms of powerful cartridge revolvers, okay, yeah, you gotta wait a couple of years, but only a couple of years. So it's single action only. You could already get triple action percussions. There's just nothing. I'm sorry, I hate to say this. The U.S. revolver market, it just went to crap. Like, it started off hot. Mm-hmm. Colt establishes the popularized military revolver, and then no one else does anything interesting in the U.S. for quite a while. I shouldn't say that entirely because you see really wacky stuff like the Savage North and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are fascinating, and it's an attempt, and it's kind of a strong attempt at times, but really Britain and Liège take over. Like Birmingham. And
that last one was the best pronunciation.
Yeah, in Liège. Mm-hmm. They take over for a long time. Sorry, what were we doing?
No, we're good. It's insignificant. That was the answer.
I mean, in terms of the evolution of everything, it was insignificant.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I get you. Do you have any information on specifically which parts were modified for the 08 conversion of the Steyr to 9x19?
I would Google that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to have an example in front of me and measure it all out. I'm sure somebody's done that measuring.
Probably. I mean...
there's a book, I believe... Was it Motz's book?
Actually, I think, yeah,
there's an Austrian book. Yeah, but it's all in German. But that might have the details. We haven't covered that gun yet, so I haven't done the walk down on that. Sorry.
Let's see. What firearm have you examined so far that most defied your expectations for it?
What are you thinking? Don't read my answer.
I'm not reading your answer.
Don't read my answer.
I don't care about your answer. Your answer has no significance to me. What firearm are you saying that most defied your expectations for?
So you had an expectation.
Yeah.
And then something happened.
Well, so defied, it has kind of a negative tone to it, but...
Not necessarily.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
You could have thought it was garbage.
Positively, well, there's things that I looked poor and then performed well. So, for instance, the Greek Montlicker Schonauer 03 1430 carbine.
Yeah, but that one was just dogged out. It's still a gorgeous gun when it's not dogged out like
right,
that.
Right, but it looked terrible, and it had so much horrible pitting on it that I thought it was going to impact the action somewhat. There'd be some sort of drag. No, all of that was really clean feeling, so that was really kind of nice. And I could say that about the Carnos in the past. I remember distinctly on range looking at them thinking, oh, they're going to be terrible, and yet they ran like tanks. That was great.
That's fair. I did not think we would have two Vetterlies give up on us.
That was amazing.
I went into the Vetterli one thinking, oh, it's a rear locking, symmetrically locking lug. It uses a collar, but I don't know how much compression is in there or how much variance is in there, know. And 6.5 isn't the hottest cartridge. I bet this is going to be better than I think, And then the first one failed out.
The bolt cracked.
Yeah, the collar for the locking rings cracked.
Yes. And
we noticed it because it started jamming up, and I went, uh-oh. So then we went and double-checked the ammo because we, maybe the overboard ammo, maybe whatever. Yeah. And we really, walked it back and made sure everything was right. We grabbed another rifle. And then I went to test fire it indoors. And it had a case head separation invented in the magazine and blew the magazine wide open.
Yep.
And then that just blew wood everywhere and embedded a bunch of wood shards in my face.
That's why you wear eye protection, kids.
I mean, if I didn't have them, I'd be blind.
Yeah, literally.
And I still get crap about that, but by that point, we had double checked everything. And on that one, it had just too much unsupported case head. And it just, the round didn't hold up. And it wasn't some old reload or anything.
No.
So it was like, I think the brass we had scavenged from Priv, but reloaded the cartridge to our standard, if I remember correctly. It doesn't matter. So that was surprising.
Spectacularly bad.
Another one that I think defied my expectations is the 0815.
Why is that?
I just thought it would do better. It was so heavy.
Oh.
And it had the belt and everything, and I thought the 0815 being, and it was so general issue, I thought, oh, there must be something here. But you get it up on that bipod.
And it's just... Boop, 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 boop,
And you're just going, just put it at the other end. This is so terrible. I mean, just an awful bipod mount.
Yeah, terrible.
Anyway.
Let's see. Oh, we should take a pause for the cameras.
Okay.
All right, next question. Do you have any plans to make an episode about the legendary Borchardt C93 pistol?
Oh,
yes.
Those were real. I don't think they're a legend.
No, they're not legendary.
No, they're real.
No, I have seen them.
Yeah, I've handled
They're
them.
not like the, oh, dang, what's the name of those legendary Pokemon birds?
What's the name of the legendary Pokemon birds?
Well, anyway, there's not like 3 variants and there's only one of each of them, which is also weird, by the way, I want to point out.
That's not legendary. They're real, too.
But there's only, are they only just on their own? Can they not procreate with the other birds, or are they just the last of their kind?
Is it just a magic thing?
I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah, but we just don't have one.
Send me your Borchardt C93. Put it in the mail.
Yeah.
Let's rock and roll.
I'll shoot it. I'll touch it.
Can you imagine Bruno having to take it apart?
Bruno would cry.
Yeah.
You ever want to watch Bruno cry? Send us a Borchardt C93.
That'd be fun.
And not for Bruno.
Yeah. I want the stock, though.
Oh, that would be cool.
I really want to shoot with stock.
Oh, that'd be rad. Have there been any firearms you didn't want to do or were reluctant to do but felt obligated to do?
Do you have an answer?
I'm trying to think, actually. Was there one? I mean, I kind of get oppositionally defiant when people constantly start asking for a certain gun time and time again.
I hated having to do the Lee Enfield episode because it was so pushed. But before the 1911, it was Lee Enfield. And then when we talked about the Lee Enfield, it was nothing but griping about how we didn't praise it enough.
Yeah.
And then the new one's going to be the 1911, which at least the 1911 is like, spoiler alert, the 1911 is like the best handgun of that era because it defines the modern handgun.
Yeah.
But the Lee Enfield did not define the modern bolt action. As a matter of fact, as much as everybody praises it, name one sporting rifle that was made after 1920 that was based off of Lee Enfield. Nobody did that. The Mausers took over the sporting market.
I guess that's kind of what I feel reluctant, but that's just because of my own personal oppositional defiance that I get with it.
No, I'm just like, the 1911's driving me a little crazy too, because people think it's cute to just spam it all the time. But it's hard to explain. Imagine you're doing your best at something. You're going out of your way to find every bump in the road to do it in a way that no one's ever done it before so that you can all see. And when I read the best book, there's a book out there that is, I think it's like $900 to get the dang book.
Yes, it is. I know which one you're talking about.
Sven got a hold of it, actually. Thank you, Sven.
Yes.
And we managed to take our notes out of it and leave it at that because we didn't even want to blow that much money. Right. And so that book, the holy grail of everything 1911, has a page on sort of like the 1909 and 1910. There really isn't that much in there. Right. And there's no narrative around it. And I'm going to tell you, there's a huge and obvious gap in that story that we are going to reveal in our 1909/010 episode, or 010 episode. I always do that. And then we're going to do the 1911, right? Yeah. But by then, it's all mostly done.
Yeah.
But
it's just going to be, and then this.
Right. So I'm literally sweating how to get all this arranged.
Honestly, going past the 1911, that'll be cooler.
Yeah, you're sweating how to get it all set up, and you're busting hump, and you get these comments that are just so negative about it, and once it's done, they're just going to find something else to complain about because they're just there to complain. So, like, I understand that you just want to be like, yeah, do it, go pick up a shit. Dude, go grab there's TSAS 1911s for $500. Buy 2 of them and just go like this in your backyard and film it, and then you can have all the video you want because that's all you care about is just seeing a 1911.
Yeah, I am not gonna double hand them.
No, we're not doing.
Single-handed.
We're gonna tell the story. Sorry, that was my gripe.
Thigh grapes. What else we got? In both World War I and World War II, we saw occasional use of aircraft MGs converted to infantry use. Were any of them particularly effective and even sought after, or were they all just kludges?
Yeah. The problem is overheating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to my knowledge, they mostly got pressed into light machine gun rolls instead of machine gun rolls, which means you would rather have an even lighter thing than that. Or if you were using it to replace a heavy, you would want something that you could get more sustained fire with. But
I'm assuming that it was kind of critical that they were on aircrafts because the air from...
Yeah, the air cool was
critical.
You needed a lot of air to cool down.
So without that, it'd be a little difficult.
I mean, it beats having nothing, but no. To be honest with you, the biggest influence of them is just driving that desire to have an air-cooled light machine gun. No, light machine gun's a different word too.
Yeah.
You kind of see this evolution towards like the German, like MG 3442 of being the definitive lightened automatic or light automatic or whatever you want to call it, but the squad automatic, which you could kind of try to say that the aircraft guns led to that, but really what it is I think that call was already there. We want something light and automatic that we can carry around that has, continuous capacity, large capacity, and then we can pin and move and has these high fire rates too, because that's another thing that they had on the aircraft guns. So it's probably more coincidental than it is that one inspired the other. So I think realistically they're largely just kludges.
That's fair.
At that time.
Let's see here. How do you compare the workmanship of British rifles such as the Martini Henry made by Enfield to American rifles such as the Peabody made by Providence Tool Company?
So for British to American production, this gets tricky. And it's going to make a lot of people mad.
Usually do.
U.S. arms production was, for firearms production, once you get into not even the center fire era, to be honest, it's almost like once you get into the ladder percussion era, that is where the U.S. market just completely dwarfs the British ability. And Britain ends up having to emulate the U.S. a lot. And nobody likes to hear it because there's a lot of British pride there, but the amount of hand fitting still going on in Britain by the time you get into the 1870s is still fairly impressive compared to the U.S. that has just gone hard machine. And
I'm even thinking that Trantor 1868 that we handled.
Yeah.
Good God, that thing was just a handmade mess.
Well, and the problem is, if you go to read a source on the British Martinis, what are they going to do? They're going to quote out of RSAF Enfield or one of the British producers who are not going to tell you that they did a bad job. They're not going to do it. So you have to look at these minor clues, which is the fit and finish argument on British stuff is internal. Okay. There's not a lot of external contracts except to other colonies of Britain or powers that don't have their own manufacturing to compare to, right? So the British are already having internal arguments about what's truly interchangeable and what's not, and it's really starting to maybe get resolved by that era. And then U.S. has gone hard interchangeable since Samuel Colt, and they're really pushing it to the point that everybody starts copying them. But if you look at our Ottoman Martini episode, right? I don't have all the details, but supposedly the Ottomans bring them like 3 British Mark I Martini Henrys.
Right.
And they say, we want these. And the U.S. grabs one of them, dimensions off of it, makes a rifle, sends it back to the Ottomans. The Ottomans go, this doesn't hold dimensions to this rifle we have here. And they go, what? And it starts this whole argument in which they have to come up with what is the actual dimensions of the gun, because the guns they had from the British did not match each other. Unless they somehow got Martini Henrys not from the British. You know what I mean? It's just like, who made the ones that the Ottomans had that they gave to the U.S. because they did not mark to each other.
Right. They clearly should have, so...
But then, in defense of the British, if you're trying to do it across multiple factories like BSA, LSA, and the Royal Small Arms Factory, look at what happens in World War I with the US when you try to have the P-14 made by multiple manufacturers, and none of them can hold tolerances to each other because of all the confusion that came about. And so, in order to like lay down datum and hold it, the US is king, like at that time. But what does that mean in actual issue? Is it really that critical? How much hand fitting was really necessary? I'm afraid that gets so far into the weeds that by the late 1870s, I'm going to be going, I'm not sure. Especially if you're talking about Royal Small Arms Factory Enfield. Birmingham gun manufacturers like the Webleys, the early Webleys, probably nowhere near as tight as the American tolerances.
Yeah.
But
Fair. Let's see here. Would you carry an Ortgies with one in the chamber as a concealed carry piece, or is there too much risk of accidental discharge if the handgun is dropped?
Yeah, I have not done any research on Ortgies, so I assume they're not drop safe.
I'm assuming so as
That
well.
would imply that there's a thing about Ortgies being not drop safe. Ortgies come up a lot because they're like a latter World War I thing that sort of showed up in the commercial market immediately afterwards.
I think we got an offer for some too as well.
We have, but unfortunately I know of no military use of the Ortgies other than that it just kept being included in older pistol works as being a World War I era German pistol that maybe was used, and it's just this sort of like...
There's myths.
They're trying to kind of
it.
force it in there, and since we've been so martially focused, it's kind of like... It's really just an obscure but overrepresented commercial pistol that then gets lumped in with the military stuff just by coincidence of it being mentioned so many times. So it's something I don't know a lot about with the Ortgies. However, if there is a handgun that is not drop safe, I would not carry it chamber ready. I probably wouldn't carry it at all, to be honest with you, though. As a concealed carry, I would go with one of the very affordable concealed carries that are available all over the place that are very modern. Like, I'd be looking for like a double stack 9 that's drop safe. Let's do that.
Yeah. The previous owner of this guy's Swedish M96 Mauser kept everything mint except the trigger. He's asking if it's important to keep the original matching trigger despite its modification, or replace it with a non-matching but functionally correct unit. I mean, I guess it depends if he wants to shoot it or not.
Yeah. Or what are you doing with it?
Yeah. Is there... I mean...
Or is this a collectability question?
Ooh, that's a good question, because there's been times when we've come across pieces that, you know, have serial matching parts in it, but those parts are either broken or have been filed to where they're not working correctly inside the gun anymore.
The damage is already done. It's your choice. What a lot of people do is they take the serial matched part, throw it in a baggie, tape it to the stock of the gun, or rubber band it to the stock of the gun, and just leave it with it. I see that at gun shows all the time.
Yeah.
This part's not matched, or this part is matched but broken, and I just left it with the gun because I just thought somebody one day might want to... It depends on how it's broken.
They've replaced it internally with something else.
Yeah, so I mean, someone along the way might want to re-weld and reshape and actually get it right, or not. But there's no harm in leaving it with the firearm if you want to replace the part just so you can enjoy it. I'm not sure the break that you're describing or the modification that you're describing. So
right. Yeah. Why did Colt revolvers take so long to settle on the top and bottom frame of the 1873?
Do you want to handle this one?
I don't know why they took so long.
It's gonna make everybody mad.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Because Colt revolvers lack innovation from basically the model 1851. And the innovation of the 1851 is that we made it smaller.
I remember you ranting about this the other day, actually, now.
Yeah, there's no such... The 1870...
His rants are so frequent that it just kind
The 1873 is hot garbage. Like, sorry, Single Action Army is... I'm not saying it isn't a usable gun, and I know there's going to be a million cries of blah, 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 blah. But just like we're talking about the Remington 1858, if a Remington 1858 was a percussion single action with a top strap... that was clearly outdated by the time it was released because Europe had already come up with all this other great stuff.
Right.
And it still bothers me because Europe's making this stuff by hand. Where it's like what we said before, the US had better control. Imagine an American made, but double or triple action revolver from that era for percussion. That'd be awesome. But no, I mean, there's some, but not not to the quality level, because back then there were still lower quality manufacturers in America. I know somebody's gonna be like, but so and so made this, and you're right, but they probably didn't make it to that quality standard of a Colt or a Remington, and yet Colt and Remington didn't do anything all that innovative. Except for, I know people are going to be like, what about the rider? And you're going to go, look at that little thing. It's awful. Why didn't they make it a normal? Anyway, so.
Look, he's already arguing with himself.
I'm arguing with the virtual people that are already yelling at me.
Yeah.
But the point is, really, realistically, the only innovation that is in the Colt 1873 is the bushing, which is that the cylinder rotates around a bushing that rotates around the arbor, which means you have to, for a black powder gun, you have to have 2 points of failure for rotation to fail, which is actually quite brilliant and very well executed with their machining quality. But then there's nothing else about that gun. It uses the same lock work as the Dragoon, you know what I mean? It uses, or the Walker almost. Yeah. I mean, it's the same lock work. It's just single action only. All they've done is add a top strap, and really they were forced to add the top strap.
So does it use that roller with the hammer setup?
They do have the roller on the mainspring, which just smooths it out some. So I guess there's like one little nod to innovation there, but that goes back quite a while.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest with you, look at the history of that, where they tried doing the 72 before that, which was an open top. And then everybody looked at him like, what the hell are you doing? And they went, oh, fine, okay, we'll put a top strap on it. Like, they just didn't want to. They were forced to do it. So, no, they rest. It's Colt. The Colt. To be fair to them, Samuel Colt died, and they lost the man that was pushing the product. Pushing the innovation.
So all they could do is go, oh crap, we better keep reusing what's here. Maybe it'll keep selling.
It's frankly amazing that Colt didn't get immediately bought out or subsumed by somebody else, but it was one of those like too big to fail situations. It had all this momentum, and it just carried that momentum until it thankfully made something that was market acceptable enough that, in combination with the fact that they'd established a brand name, especially in the U.S., but not really anywhere else to the degree that people want to think they did.
So were they Harley Davidson?
Well, they had their in with the ordinance, they had their in with the public opinion, and that kept them afloat with the 1873 and sold a bunch of those well into the years when it was really obsolete, even in the American market. So, and we'll have an episode on that gun, and we'll talk about the benefits of it to some degree, where people found certain utility to it, but it's a lot of cope, to be honest with you. So yeah, they took too long because they didn't have anybody at the head of the ship anymore.
It took too long. Now your candy's gone. That's what happened.
There's also a lot of hesitancy because a lot of the U.S. guys wanted to penetrate the European market, but all the good patents for revolvers were taken because the U.S. was too busy fighting over bore through cylinder. And so all the U.S. innovation went towards fighting this one stupid roll and white patent. And then they got distracted and forgot to go patent anything usable in Europe around triple action, double action, whatever, gately, all these features. So then, by the time the 1873 is coming around, all the good mechanisms are taken by the Europeans, which, doesn't necessarily apply in the U.S., or maybe it does, but you want to be able to sell internationally, so you end up just making a gun that is using technology so old because at least you don't get sued for using it. So there is an element of that, too. I'm sorry, do we need to cook the cameras?
Yeah, let's pause for the cameras. All right, next question. What are your thoughts on the Bond Arms lever gun that uses AR-15 magazines? I did have to watch a few videos to figure out.
Carl was playing with it, but
Yes.
I mean, it seems
Plays with it a few times.
neat. To be honest with you, it looks like a use case for countries that aren't allowed semi-automatics.
I was wondering about that. That was the only thing I could think of, was maybe internationally it could have some use. But
And then there's some sort of there's some entertainment potential there, but
it can only hold like 5 rounds, I think, and when you feed them in through the butt.
what? Does it feed through the butt?
Yeah.
No, it takes AR-15 magazines, it said.
Oh, yeah, it does. Never mind. I thought it only took up to 5 rounds, though.
If only if you put a 5-round magazine in it.
I guess so.
I mean, it would depend on the country, I guess, too. But it looks like a ban evasion gun to me, just on the surface. And it feels like... I'm not a big fan of the let's take every other thing and make it fit into an AR-15 platform.
It does seem like that's kind of becoming a thing, isn't it?
Right, like it's got to take it, because what it does is it's created this. And look at the wall. Look at what I do for a living. I'm a man who likes a gun that is designed to be what it is, and does a good job of it. When you're constantly trying to shoehorn features from different guns together just because that's what's popular in the market, we want it to take AR mags because everybody has AR mags. Gotcha, and I understand that. You know what I mean? Look at like the Shire AUG. They made the one that takes STANAG, but then it doesn't have the bolt release, and that drives everybody crazy. I get it. You know, the trick though is this is almost like forcing the issue. You haven't created another new semi-automatic that is in the same category as the AR-15, and you want to just make sure that you can leave some magazine compatibility because that's polite to do to the people that have all these magazines, and it might make the product more popular because then people can just own one magazine for multiple guns. I get it.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it does... Most lever actions, the draw for them is not that they lever, it's that they're a cowboy gun.
Yeah, and that doesn't really look or feel like cowboy.
Yeah. But I'm sure lots of people like it for reasons I'm not even thinking of, but I'm a historian, so that's just going to be my
Maybe that's the way they can still be modern but feel cowboy. They want to be the modern cowboy.
That's fair.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'll shoot one. I'll shoot anything, but...
I'd try it.
Yeah.
It seems weird, though. This guy had a 1907 Colt News Service, and he was surprised at how different the internals were to those of a post-1909 model. Do you have any additional information on this old model or knowledge as to why it was changed so drastically when creating the 1909? I frankly can't remember the internals. It's been a while.
It's been a bit. But the News Service, to be fair, all of our Revolver episodes need to be reworked because back when we did the New Service, we were calling it a Galland action because that's as close as we could get to understand
What episode was that? 100 and something?
I don't know. We've improved our Revolver knowledge a lot since then. The New Service is a derivative of the Fanyu lockwork, just like everything else is.
Yeah, back then I think we were still calling it Warnant.
The original patent that they locked down was actually an even weirder Fanyu derivation in which they added an extra tine to the mainspring. So you imagine like actually, you could imagine a Warnant mainspring, which is a Fanyu with it integrated, right? Which is still not fair because I think I have a patent where Fanyu even figured that out before. But
go Fanyu.
you had yet another part to this combination mainspring that is handling the cylinder stop, and they broke that off into a separate piece, and they did it with a flat spring at first, but then by 1909 they replaced it with a coil spring because of savings in terms of manufacturing, because coil springs, you could buy them off the shelf. You didn't have to make them. And that's a big thing now, actually. Coil springs are in everything because you buy the size and tension that you want and you're done. Having flat springs, you have to kind of make them yourself to the
tempering, yeah.
No, I mean, even without the tempering and stuff, just to include a flat spring is almost a custom job every time. Whereas to include a coil spring, you can kind of just design around one of several sizes and just go with it, you know? So, I'm honestly struggling to remember all the differences, but yeah, there are a few minute differences. I believe there's 3 variations of the New Service. I believe there's the first, a transitional, and then the 1909 pattern, which I assume was put into place for due to ruggedization and expense saving when producing for the U.S. government. That would be my guess. They probably asked for cost cutting, but it's been a while since we've done those episodes.
Oh, yeah, we need to review them.
Honestly, the big book on these, the big Colt New Service book, does not have diagrams of the changes in the lockwork.
Oh, that's not helpful at all.
No, it's not. So take a picture of both of yours so that there's at least a record of the differences in photo somewhere.
Oh, that'd be great.
Because it's not in the book.
Dang. Let's see. Given how many rifles you get to play with, what's your favorite full-powered rifle cartridge?
There you go. Full-powered rifle cartridge.
I don't know. 6.5 Jap is pretty good.
Yeah, fairly mild.
Yeah. I kind of like 7.5 French.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I have had that I shoot that out of my Moss 4956, which I have not shot in a while, but I absolutely
You haven't shot since before we started the show, I think.
No, I've shot it since then.
Oh, okay.
It has been several years since I've shot it, but that was one of my favorite rifles to shoot. I thought the round was actually coming perfect out of that gun. Recoil felt very controllable.
I'm a big fan of 7mm Mauser.
Very clean.
And then, to be honest with you, I think it's been a meme for our Discord for our patrons. But I really, really, really like 35 Remington.
Oh, he does.
That is a fantastic sort of mid-range cartridge. It's not intermediate. It's above that. But in terms of being a viable, really somewhere between like think of it as a military cartridge that can outperform an intermediate, but also very good as a North American game cartridge.
Right.
And so it's one of those things where you're going, there's very few situations you couldn't get in or out of with 35 Remington. Yeah,
it was marketed to be used on large game in American history.
It's also just small enough. It's like this kind of thing, like you go from 30-06 down to NATO, and it gives you a little bit of ease on the magazine, you know? And 35 Remington is in that category too, where you just get a little more smidge so that you can do you can have a little easier of a time on a semi-automatic magazine gun, which is what it evolved from. It evolved from early semi-automatics, which is why it's compact and fairly easy on the action. So you can get away with a lot. I think I would be really impressed to see the market produce stuff around something like 35 Remington in a semi-automatic capacity. But the problem is everybody wants to put their own stink on it. So we have all these boutique rounds coming out when you could really just kind of reach back and just grab 35 Remington. It's all there. And just make something around that. But the problem is everybody's going to do the same thing. They're going to go, oh, that's obsolete. Nobody buys that anymore. We should introduce a brand new cartridge that nobody's buying and then will be just as expensive.
How do you really feel about it?
Well, they want to put their name on it.
Yeah, I know. Let's see, next question. Do turn bolt rifles. Do turn bolt rifles with non-rotating bolt heads, such as Gewehr 88 derivatives, experience similar issues with primary extraction as the early wedge-locking Mannlicher straight pulls, such as the 86 and 8890?
So there's a misunderstanding there, and I'm not sure if I played into it earlier in our episodes or not. The primary extraction force would be the jumped up leverage provided by a lot of that camming action going into a pulling action. Not necessarily the fact that you're rotating around the rim. So if you have lugs that are tapered and rotating, that means that as they rotate, they are already coming back, but they're coming back slowly, which creates a lot of torque. That is where your primary extraction is. So on a wedge locker, that as it unlocks, the bolt head's just sitting there and it's just stretching its neck like a giraffe as the wedge rises, and then all of a sudden you're just snatching it from the chamber. That means you haven't put any like firm muscle. It's the difference between It's the difference between just like really getting kind of Tai Chi and resisting your muscle and just like pulling real hard versus just sort of going snatch. And so if I go real hard and just barely move her and then pull versus just snatching right off the bat, and
I get that actually weirdly. Yeah, you get a firmer grip with the first one.
Well, it's not even a firmer grip. It's about easing it out of the chamber with more torque, a shorter distance with heavier pressure.
Like
in order to break it free.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just snatch, you have a chance of tearing up the extractor, tearing up the rim, whatever, because you're getting all this sort of...
It's the difference between first gear and second gear in mud.
Yeah, torque.
Yeah.
So you could, in theory, design a wedge locker that cammed as it came back, and it would give you some primary extraction. You can also, in theory...
Would that be superior then?
Yeah, you can also do rotating bolt actions that don't cam. As a matter of fact, the earliest ones didn't. And so they would have no primary extraction. So even if they just sort of do this, they don't really get any extra primary extraction as long as there's no pullback under tension.
Right.
So.
Okay, makes sense.
Sorry, I'm not a physicist, but hopefully I explained that okay.
With science. Now that Smith & Wesson is copying the Kel-Tec Sub 2000, what are the pros and cons of the Smith to the Kel-Tec? I actually looked that one up. It's weird. It folds... It adds to the profile. I don't like that.
There's been a couple of these because our buddy Scooch
Scooches around.
Scooch Double Aught actually lives in our state.
He does.
And he's a sweet man, and I see him at the gun shows, and we hug. So
it's true. Although he won't get lunch with him.
Yeah, why won't you get lunch with me?
I don't know why.
Everybody asks.
Are you afraid to watch a man with a beard?
As a matter of fact, I demand that everybody that also subscribes to him, especially if you're a patron, that would be even better.
Oh, that'd be fun.
You should be bombarding him with why won't you go to the Colombian restaurant with Othias?
Yeah.
Because we've asked him 5 times.
Yeah.
And he never goes.
And then if he gets enough of those questions, he may actually call you.
No, I just get annoyed. I tell you what, I know his dark secret because I know that he watched an anime because his child got him to watch an anime.
Such, I have also watched that anime.
Yeah. And he did not tell me that it was a secret.
He did not
tell me.
No.
So I will reveal Such's anime preferences if you guys can get him to go to lunch with me.
Don't tell him
Colombian
that,
restaurant.
Don't tell him that's the trade-off.
I want to go to the Colombian restaurant.
Because he may not call you.
Somebody's going to send him this clip, and I'm threatening you with exposing your anime taste.
It's bad. It's bad.
No, he'll just never go to lunch with me.
I've seen the anime. It's bad that he watches that.
Oh. He said it, and I went, isn't that the one? Like, Top 10 anime
the
betrayals
shame.
starring Matthias. Okay, so we haven't
didn't
answered the question.
No, this wasn't about.
It's definitely the Smith and Wesson is definitely not a copy of the Caltech.
People are all jazzed about it because they were saying, "Oh yeah, now you can fold and keep your optic on it, but you can also fold yours and keep the optic."
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. The foldy guns are kind of running together. So this is why I brought up Such. Because there was that one gun where you could like twist the top to fold it. And I thought that was rad because that solved a lot of problems. But then you couldn't leave the magazine in there, which made me mad. Right? So I went, I don't know. Right? And then Smith & Wesson came out with this and I went, oh boy, another foldy gun because I love these. And then I looked at it and went, they missed the entire point. They did. They just complete. I'm sorry. I don't understand why I'm going to be mean here. I don't understand why any human being would buy that gun at this point.
Okay, so they're not humans.
I don't understand it because this is the beauty of the Caltech. Okay. I understand if yours broke or something or whatever. We're not talking about the execution. We're talking about the theory. All right.
What was the theory then?
The theory is the gun fold up like this. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right. So with the Caltech, you end up like the gun is X wide and Y tall. And when you fold it, and I had this discussion when actually Matt LaRose here, Floodbusters, and I were talking about this like instantly. When you fold it over itself, it becomes X wide. There's no change in width. And the height becomes 1.5 Y or less. And when you do what I did and you get the foldy optic, or the rotating thing and whatever, you can keep it all in this nice plane and it only adds like the height of the optic and it stays pretty flat and it goes into like a Jansport backpack like nobody's business.
Oh my God, it's great.
It just disappears and you can put it in a laptop and you can put whatever. It's not the only thing in the backpack because it doesn't have lumps standing out. And I understand there's, I think it's M Carbo does like a side mount hinging optic thing that flips over. And I ended up not going with that. I went with the Redline twisty forend. Because the side optic thing means that you now have a gun that when you fold it up, it's 2x wide.
Right.
So you doubled your width. No, I understand it's only this one spot, but it's still sticking out like a wart. You've doubled your width and you've 1.5 your height.
Yep.
So
you added.
Yeah, your spatial
the whole
distortion.
Point was trying to still keep it the smallest amount of space.
Yeah, if you're imagining a hitbox cube around the whole thing, you've radically increased the cube to go to the side, okay? And this is what Smith & Wesson has done. They fold it over, and now it's just double wide, which is incredibly inconvenient for sticking it in anything. I mean, I guess a duffel, but then you have to kind of fold stuff around it. Don't get me wrong.
It's an awkwarder shape.
It's not as long, but it's also twice as wide, you know?
Yeah.
The fold over is brilliant. Brilliant. The only thing you could do to make the Smith & Wesson, or the Caltech better, rather, is to have the grip fold up somehow, you know? And just really make it like, you know?
Oh, but then that would increase the length a little bit more.
No, if you just, no, because it would fold inside that charging handle zone.
Ooh, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they need like, I forget the name of that company that makes the folding AR grips. They need to make a version of that. Now, that would mean the magazine, you'd almost have to like, be like a Webley. You know the Webley Auto where you can drop the magazine down a little bit? It'd be like, just drop the magazine a little bit, one click, have the grip fold back. And then when you're ready for it, you just flick the grip down and push the mag in, fold it over. And then you'd have an even smaller package. And then for me, it's like I fold it out, I got my irons. If I want the optic, I loosen the collar, flip it, and tighten the collar. And I'm in. And then, I'm sorry, Caltech did the suppressed version, and I got mad at Caltech because they screwed this up too. Because it was like, oh, they did integrally suppressed version. Have you handled one? You can't rotate it 180 degrees. You can only rotate it like 30 or 40, so your optic ends up over here, which again, now, okay, you're not 2x wide, but you're like 1.5x wide, then you fold over and you're 1.5 y tall, and you're going, why did you ruin the x plane? Like, why did you mess with the width? If you just let it rotate 180, if they would let it rotate 180, it'd be the same solution as the red line and everybody would be happy. But no, you guys just couldn't do it.
Yeah, they could not do it.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a pause for the cameras.
Because I went on a rant.
Yeah. All right, next question. What are your grail guns?
Nice try.
Oh, holy grail. Is that what it means?
What?
Does it mean like holy grail?
Yeah, the gun you want most.
Oh. Why'd you say nice try?
I said, nice try, Blanco Neo.
Oh. You can't have it.
Yeah. That would be the dumbest thing I could say on air, because then I'd never own it.
Yeah.
If I was a gajillionaire, I mean, if I was wealthy, I could probably be like, I want to own whatever. And then I would still have to fight all the other wealthy people for it, but I could at least bankrupt myself doing it. But no, I'm poor. I'm not telling you.
I mean, I guess you could say something that's mythical, and then it wouldn't matter. That doesn't really exist.
Is it weird that I don't really think about them though?
No.
If it's something that I literally can't have, like it's outside of my affordability zone, let's say.
Or existence.
I mean, if I was wealthy, it'd be nice to just own certain automatics, right? But I don't because I'm not. So, I mean, I guess there's stuff I could say in that field, but it's all the stuff you guys have seen on the show. I just love to own a lot of the automatics we've borrowed, you know, or like T-Gewehr's turn up.
Yeah.
But I will never afford that. Like, that's just...
Yeah, and we also don't really have a use for the show.
And then I have to put it somewhere.
So, oh, God.
Actually, that's more your thing. Like, you love the T-Gewehr.
I really did. That was great.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so heavy.
But, no, there's some little stuff I want, but I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you at all.
It's his secret to
I told people things. I own a revolver that's like...
There was that one guy that... You told him a thing you wanted, then he bought it and lorded it over you. That was kind of rude.
That's happened more than once.
Yeah. That one. Well, I was thinking about the one that emailed you. That was me.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Next question. In your opinion, what is the most innovative firearm action?
Actually, wait. Before I answer that,
Yeah.
Do you know what's happened more often than even that? Hey guys, would you want this? Like email.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey, would you want this? And it's just like, I mean, you always have to play it kind of coy. You have to be like. I mean, I'd be curious, what's the price, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, I just want to make sure you wanted it. Now I'm buying it. That happens like a lot. Who knows why? Anyway.
People need their high, I guess. In your opinion, what's the most innovative firearm action?
Oh, wait, now I got to not answer this question again. Because another thing has happened multiple times, which is people will be like, do you want this? And they're selling it. And I say, yes. What's your price or whatever? And they'll either give me the price or they'll give me a trade value or something like this. Happened multiple times. And I say, I'll trade you X, or I'll say, I can pay you Y or whatever. And then they go, okay, nice. And we start to arrange like, okay, where am I shipping it? How are we doing this?
Yeah, this.
And then a couple days go by and they go, I think I need to get more out of it. Or even at table. I've had it happen directly at shows. And what it is they're going, wait, Matthias wants it, and he agreed to it quickly, which means I'm getting ripped off. And then, or just they didn't think about it. Maybe it's because I'm Matthias, they just want to say yes for some reason, and they didn't think about what they wanted. But the point is, the people who try to renegotiate the contract mid-contract, or mid exchange.
Yeah, you walked away every time.
Is extremely, it's the guaranteed way for me to never talk to you again because I don't trust the process anymore. Like, it's just like, I just go, what am I going to do now?
Didn't one guy try to come back and be like, hey, I still have that thing.
Multiples have. Yeah. Multiples have come back and been like, hey, did you still want that? I'm like, sell it to somebody else and I'll buy it from them because it's like, you and I are done. Because whatever this game is, I'm not playing it. It's weird. I don't know if we're flirting. I don't know what it is, but I'm not doing it. All right.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
People are weird.
What's the most innovative firearm action?
Go.
I honestly trying to think of innovative, and I more think of what's the Bodeo is excellently simple.
But it's not innovative because it stole from a bunch of everything else.
Yeah, I guess so. Shoot, the most innovative.
I can think of a couple.
I personally can't think of what I would consider as innovative.
You handled some innovative firearms.
I mean, I have, but I'm not really sure.
Okay, you ready?
Okay, what is your answer?
Are you ready?
Sure.
Are you ready?
No.
Oh. Madsen was pretty innovative, but not all that good at executing it.
Definitely was not.
Because early light automatic. Like really early light automatic.
I mean, the Madsen.
That's why I said Madsen.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you
think I said?
I don't know why. I spaced on what you were talking about. I just totally spaced.
Ooh, okay, we're not that far into the Q&A yet, and you're already losing it. Yeah, and then MP18, we shot that. And I'm sorry, but almost all submachine guns after that are
kind of just derivative of that. You're not wrong.
I mean, there's some fancier ones that are then based off of locked actions or whatever complicated things. Like, there's ways to overcomplicate a submachine gun, but the idea that somehow a Sten is radically simpler than MP18 is garbage. The MP18 is the blueprint for submachine guns, except for the magazine. But there was a reason for that. Browning 1918 machine gun. That stuck around for a long time, and it really solved a lot of the problems of World War I machine guns. Just in time to not be there. I mean, it solved all their problems right before it ended.
That's good. That's good. That's useful.
In the revolver world, I would say like the Beaumont Adams was a fairly simple triple action revolver. It's probably what I would call the first truly usable triple action revolver.
Truly usable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
I can't think of... I'm thinking of things... The problem is I'm thinking of things like the Bodea where it's stealing things from other things. It's not really innovative.
You're thinking of things that are sublime. You're not thinking of innovative.
No.
Innovative doesn't always mean sublime.
No. That's what I'm stuck on.
Okay.
So I guess I'm screwed for that question.
I'm sorry.
What do you consider to be the best bolt-action rifle on the Central Powers side during World War One? Best bolt-action rifle.
So...
I mean...
Ooh, you know what? I might change my answer.
Okay.
I'll
I mean,
have to note for
you can
myself.
think about your answer. That's fine.
Are you sure?
The best one on the Central Powers.
I know the answer.
I mean, German stuff was all pretty good. So,
It's a gun we never shot, but I know
Gewehr
the answer.
98. What?
I know the answer.
Okay.
Keep going.
Well, I said Gewehr 98.
No. Car 98 AZ is better than the Gewehr 98.
I guess that's true. But it's been forever since we shot that.
Yeah, but I can think of one better than that.
Okay. What have you got?
We haven't shot it, though.
Well, then that doesn't
We
matter.
haven't even... Actually, this makes me mad. I had one, but it was all sporterized when this was before we ever started the show, and I sold it. And it's probably like the only one in the U.S., so whoopsie me.
Whoopsie you.
Yeah. The easily probably the best bolt-action rifle of the Central Powers would be the Ottoman 8. 7 or 8. I think, well, there's some argument about it.
19 crap.
I just remember there used to be a debate whether it was 7 or 8. Now I can't remember which one everybody settled on. But it's the Ottoman Mauser 1903 converted to a carbine. 7.65, I believe it has semi-pistol grip. It's a 98 style Mauser, but it has the improved stripper clip guide and all the other improvements to it. And tangent rear relief, I believe. Mm-hmm. So...
What's the length on that guy?
Little like the Serbian.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, on paper, it should be the best carbine of the war.
And yet you got rid of it.
Don't even. Like, it was a whole thing. We were broke when I sold that.
I know.
We were up against the wall when I sold that. So.
Well, damn. Maybe one day again. Or not.
Yeah, never. Never again.
Who invented steel-cased ammunition? You know, I've Googled that before. The best I had was either German or U.S.
I have no clue. That's way beyond my era at the moment.
But it's closer to World War II era for that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
No research. I just remember looking it up a while back and I couldn't figure out if it was the U.S. or the Germans.
I guarantee you that's a controversial question.
I'm sure.
I guarantee you. But I have no clue. That's probably a week's worth of digging around and fighting with people.
Mm-hmm. Which World War I era semi-automatic rifle would you choose to use in the war?
In the war or
in the
World
war.
War I.
I'm assuming, I'm assuming if you got to pick any of the World War I rifles.
How are we using it? Are we using it in a trench?
That's a good question. Because Remington, based off the FN 1900.
You're thinking stuff that actually got put down in there, but I'm thinking like any semi-automatic rifle available in the market.
Oh, any of them available.
Winchester 1907.
Yeah, okay, I could see that.
Because they had 10
Larger
round
magazine.
10 round
capacity,
magazine.
yeah.
351 is perfectly good at trench range. Mm-hmm. If I'm trench fighting, if I'm assaulting or close range defending, the Winchester 351 all day.
Not a bad point. Okay.
But if I'm having to do any long range work, you really only have like one option, which is the RSCs.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but it'd be fine. I mean, an RSC, I believe, could handle being a DMR if you played with it.
Yeah, and I guess new out the gate, still better.
Well, no other sniper is going to have a semi-auto to return fire.
No.
So you just have to worry about... it's one shot is a problem anyway, but if you're talking about full power rifle cartridge, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
I haven't handled and I don't know enough about the Munet, which would be like the other full-size rifle cartridge rifle. Mm-hmm. But I don't know enough about them. I haven't handled them enough to make a strong opinion in that regard. And then otherwise, you're really down to 35 Remington as being sort of the next biggest thing that you're going to get a hold of that has any reliability to it. And that's, like you said, FN 1900. Although I think you could do a lot of work with an FN 1900 or a Remington Model 8.
Yeah. I think you could too. I like the profile on those. Those are quite comfy ones for me.
But basically, we're just listing all of them at this point because there's not that many.
Not that many, no.
To be fair, this also could include, it says semi-auto, and I believe the Fedorov was select fire. But I don't know anything about the Fedorov. I mean, I know it's written down, but what's written down and what I encounter when I put my hands on things are often very different.
They do tend to be.
So I would really prefer to get my hands on one and get some more data before I would make a call.
Me too.
But
okay. Do any of the firearms in your collections have an interesting history?
Yes, we made a show about it.
I would like to think all of them have an interesting history.
They all have they were all in the show.
They're all special in their own unique ways.
I mean, if it's like a provenance thing, like it was owned by somebody famous, no clue. I don't have anything that was owned by anybody famous that I know of.
The only thing I can think of when you think of an interesting history, whereas it was a history that you uncovered turns out to be different than what was talked about in mass, maybe things like the Montenegrin.
Yeah, but that's not... We put in the show. I don't know how to explain it. There's nothing here that's like, oh, wow, you know?
I mean, we tried shooting those grenades out of the air with the trench gun, and then they just kind of fell to the ground.
Yeah, but that doesn't make the gun's history... No, that doesn't make the gun's history interesting.
No, just it's interesting that they, a myth about them was spread so wildly.
No, I'm full of interesting designs. I'm full of things that have broad histories that are interesting, but in terms of the individual gun having a story, no, I don't buy the story. So therefore, it's weird. If you don't buy the story, you never buy a gun that has a story because the story always adds money.
It's true.
Yeah.
Everyone likes to add dollars to that. Why did the tilting barrel operating system become the dominant system over others, such as the falling block or rotating barrel?
Talking about pistols, I assume.
I guess, yeah.
I would imagine a combination of momentum, in terms of the market momentum, the fact that it doesn't require extra parts, because it's just once you get a camming tilting barrel, then boom, you're in business. You just have the barrel, the frame, and the slide, and that's your lock. And then in that regard, there's less jigging and probably a lot less, I don't know how to explain it. You probably have to hold fewer lines in terms of manufacturing, in terms of tolerance stack and things like that. It's just the top of that thing fits into the slide and the keyway has to drop down at about the right time. It's very forgiving in that regard. And there you go. And it probably doesn't require a lot of tensioning springs or anything like that, and it doesn't wear out very fast. So all that together means, why would I bother trying to get in here and cut this channel for, like broaching out some weird channel for the rotating locking lugs, or why would I want to have this extra piece of metal in this squared up shape in order to have the block go up and down? Why bother? I can just have it do this, and I understand it, and I don't have to pay a guy to invent something else. So...
let's do this and we'll take a pause. What are the aspects of a gun that would make it aesthetically pleasing to you?
Go.
I mean, I particularly love thin wrists with semi-pistol grips, like on a lot of the shotguns.
Is that aesthetically pleasing, or is that just pleasant to hold?
Oh, not a bad point. So that's not really necessarily aesthetically pleasing. I like Damascus barrels.
Do you?
Yeah, they're very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, they're pretty.
They look beautiful.
Do you like engraving?
I do. I kind of fall for the engravings, but they have to be done so that I don't like them all over the gun. I kind of like when they kind of work with the lines that are already present on the piece.
We don't own any engraved guns except for those that were like machine engraved, although I'm not sure. I don't think the young two-shot shotguns are roll engraved. I can't remember. They might actually be hand engraved, and if they are, that might be the only thing we own that's engraved. We don't have a lot of pretty guns. I like clean lines, not a lot of stuff sticking off the gun. I like very efficient guns in terms of their mechanisms. When we're talking about beauty.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if we're talking about fun, yeah, it needs to have a bunch of shit that moves around. But, if it's just for attractiveness, no, it's better to be slim. So,
yeah.
A really attractive gun is like the Winchester 1895 before it was reinforced. So the first series of Winchester 1895 rifles, they're very pretty. Unfortunately, they had problems, so they had to bulk them up.
Right.
Actually, that little Gehendra carbine, I find that thing to be very beautiful. I look at it from time to time. It has a very swept design, plain-sided. Yeah. It'd be a little nicer if they hid the screws, but whatever.
That would be more pleasant. You're not wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Elegance, I guess, is what I would look at for beautiful. So, like, I think Lee Enfields are quite ugly. And not that I dislike them because of that, but just they have stuff sticking out in all directions.
Yeah,
and
they kind of do.
It's clear that stuff has just been added to the design over time, and it's not integral to the design. So a lot of Browning actions look very beautiful to me because they're all sort of integrated systems, which is also why I was curious because the Winchester 87 never looked all that hot to me because all this stuff added to it. And I guess I just pick up on, like a Marlin 1898 shotgun before they added to the inertia safety, like the very first ones. Oh, those are very pretty guns.
Fair. I kind of fall for the extra bits and
Decorated.
stuff like SVT 40s and my Moss 4956.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think those are pretty though?
Yeah. They're aesthetically pleasing to me. It's honestly, it makes them look not necessarily dangerous is the word I'm looking for. It kind of makes them look more...
Badass?
Yeah, that. I kind of fall for that.
Okay, you're just going for the badass. This is a weird split because you went for engraving
Well, I have my...
and badassery.
I know. I kind of I like the differences. I don't like them combined.
It's like the Aqua Teen Hunger Force where the Carl had painted flames on his pool. And he goes, look at it.
No,
It looks like it's...
Again, you're combining. I don't like them combined. I like them individually different.
No, I just like what was the quote on that where he's just like, it looks like it's tearing ass around the yard, but it's just sitting there. Like...
With that, we're going to take a pause for the cameras. All right, next question. What is the best issued rifle round in World War? Okay, for the individual infantry. I'm guessing they meant World War One.
I don't know. I guess either would matter. It depends.
It does depend on the region.
If I'm on open ground, I want a full power rifle cartridge, so I'm going to go for like a 8mm Mauser, 7mm Mauser,
Yeah.
7.65 Argentine.
Sure.
Like all those are good cartridges.
What if you're real close range?
That's my thing, is it's kind of like the debate between trench and long range because it turns out that you have to have layered, and this is how they won the war, was layered warfare, although it tended to be combined arms between artillery and infantry and aviation and stuff like that. But even in the fighting, you end up with having to have this sort of combined arms strategy of like, this guy's got a submachine gun and this guy's got a whatever. But if you're looking for an all-around infantry round, it's got to be 35 Remington, right?
That's what you get back to every time.
Hey, in World War I, the ranges, because remember, almost all those cartridges were designed for, over 1,000 yards. But very few shots were being taken and they were no longer using that ammunition, But the problem is you then have to have machine gun ammo separate from rifle ammo because I don't think 35 Remington would make a good machine gun cartridge because you'd have too much drop. But as an individual infantryman, having a round that is essentially a little more powerful than an intermediate, well, a fair bit more powerful than an intermediate. But of course, that's not infantry ammo. I guess if we're talking about picking from the available cartridges that were in the war. 6.5 Japanese would be a pretty good one. 6.5 Carcano's not bad.
No.
People don't like the Carcano rifle, but let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with that cartridge except for that it didn't go to Spitzer. But then you get in this whole sectional density thing. But I guess because 6.5 Japanese went to Spitzer, you do get some performance bonus out of that.
Yeah.
So
I won. All right, next question. I've been doing research for a while on a story I've been working on about the Moro Rebellion. Have you had any reports of use of U.S. issued machine guns against the Moro? Besides Gatling guns.
Well, the U.S. machine guns show up a little too late for the Moro issue. Most of the fighting is resolved before the U.S. is really working with a machine gun. Unless you're trying to get really into sort of the ladder actions and just the really like occasional guerrilla whatever that happens post 1904, in that regard, you would have to...
No.
I haven't seen anything, but the best place to check that would weirdly be like books.google.com because there are tons of old ordnance files that have been scanned in by Google now.
Oh, good.
And then if you get really stuck, there's Archival Research Group who Andrew is the one there, but he is phenomenal at pulling research documents that are not digitized. He would be the gentleman to talk to in that regard if you really want to dig into that.
Oh, cool. When World War II kicked off in 1939, which country was best equipped with infantry small arms to fight in the trenches of the Great War?
Okay, now I'm confused. Which war are we talking about?
Well, it says when World War II kicked off.
So, like, which one would have been able to fight 1915 best from 1939?
I don't know. Which country was best equipped with infantry small arms to fight in the trenches of the Great War?
Yeah, the Great War.
Yeah, maybe. No, he definitely combined the two and the date.
It's like a weird walk back. Maybe the Germans.
Yeah, I
it's
guess
the Germans. Nobody was fielding. Well, the combatants if I guess we're sticking combatants, then none of the combatants for World War II by 39 were widely fielding semi-autos. There is the SVT-38 in theory, although I'm not sure when they started issuing those. I don't know that research off the top of my head.
I don't know.
And I can't remember what the Russian light machine guns were like at that time, but probably not as good as the Germans. And light machine guns count for a lot in trench warfare. Being able to take out proper machine guns and artillery and stuff like that, light machine guns are really good. That and some grenades. So I would imagine that just on the basis of having the good high rate of fire light machine guns and knowing how to use them, Germany would be in a really good place to fight World War I by World War II. But that kind of makes sense, though, because Germany kind of built their army for World War II around having learned from World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they really took the combined... It's funny, a lot of World War II is every other country forgetting what won World War I, and I guess because the Germans were on the receiving end of that, they recalled the combined arms strategy, they recalled the push, it's
like forgetting about needing limes to prevent
it's like
from getting scurvy.
Everything about Blitzkrieg is just the Germans going, this is exactly what they did to us, only we're doing it better and with more things, and you're going, yeah, actually that's a pretty good strategy. Like...
All right, next one. Are there any military procurement decisions that baffle you, or at the very least, you understand but dislike?
I mean, I can think of quite a few.
This is stuff you come across in your research more frequently.
Yeah, oh boy, okay, let's talk about the U.S. ignoring machine guns entirely for some reason. And piddling around. And I get it that Browning came out with something cool at the last minute, but it was way too late. Yeah, it didn't show. I mean, they played a really long strategy, and they acted like they did it on purpose, but really they were just effing around. Like, they did not get on the machine gun thing nearly tight enough. I'm completely baffled by the Philippine adoption of the Colt 1878-1902. I'm just so baffled by that.
Oh, God. Yeah, that makes no sense.
Like, I understand why now. Like, I get it, but I don't. I don't know how you get to the end of that and
go, why?
Somebody made a lot of them and put them in crates, and no one in that process said, guys, this is just stupid. Like, I understand that it does all the things.
On paper.
But it's stupid.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. I forgot.
I mean, there's so many more, though. I'm sure I can just keep cracking. We haven't done the episode yet, but just wait till we start talking about the Mark IV Martini Henry. That might be one of the biggest blunders I've ever seen in my life. That is so friggin' bad.
An episode to come.
Yeah.
Many months from now.
Okay.
Maybe not many. What was the most impactful lesson the U.S. took from World War I as far as small arms procurement was concerned? Not?
Probably the biggest one they learned, if we apply it to World War II, is don't just pull the plug at the end of the war. I think that's really the big one they learned.
You think
so? Oh, yeah, we abandoned everything. Oh, my God. We completely forgot what sniping was between World War I and II. We completely forgot that shotgun cartridges need to be made out of brass between World War I and World War II.
Oh, wow, they were still doing that.
We completely forgot that light machine guns are really frigging important between World War I and World War II because we still had the BAR. Like, I'm sorry, the U.S. learned almost nothing between World War I and II and became completely obsessed with having a semi-automatic rifle like that was going to solve the machine gun problem. And no, I don't think they learned much of anything realistically other than on the macro level, they learned the politics game. They learned how to nationalize when necessary, like when they went and farted with Smith & Wesson that everybody forgot that they did. Like they learned that they can get away with a lot is what they did. And then they also learned that economically, it is a really bad idea to sign out these contracts for unlimited production of something and then just yank them away.
Oh, God, yeah,
Crash your entire manufacturing market. That was probably the big thing that they didn't do. Post-war, they were ready to help shift things over to other production and just keep everything going. Like, there wasn't this massive crash from everybody coming home and the factories going idle.
Yeah, just be like, okay, nope, we're done. Yeah, they didn't do that. Can you please explain what militaries were asking for in World War I, and is that a foul? What? Can you please explain what militaries were asking for in World War I, and is that a
I assume you're talking about what they were asking for in terms of small arms.
Oh, okay.
And this probably goes back to a joke that I've made that the FAL is everything that the show shot wanted to be.
Oh, wow. How did you pick that up?
I know our market, which actually is not a joke. The FAL would have been probably. It's funny, people go, God, what would they have done if you brought the AR-15 back to World War I? When they scoff at it, they don't need that. If you brought back a FAL, like not even like an L1A1, but an actual select fire FAL, they'd have been so happy, and I think they could have handled making it too. But the FAL would have been an excellent weapon for the trenches because it does everything the show shot was meant to do, except for be quite as cheap to produce.
Yeah.
But you're talking about 20 rounds of select fire. That's a show shot in a show shot kind of package, but much lighter.
Yeah, it is more condensed.
And it's in infantry rifle size, and it's not impossible to make a carbine out of it.
Easier to walk around with.
It's weird, but the FAL is kind of what they were looking for. You're not wrong. No, it's not necessarily what they needed. What they needed was intermediate cartridges and
submachine guns.
Combined arms tactics, like we've been mentioning a bunch of times, right? Well, sort of the intermediate cartridge emerges because of the need to combine an infantry rifle with a submachine gun. That's really where it comes from. And so that's the problem you're seeing in World War I already is we kind of need this close range, long range mix going on. Intermediate cartridge actually works out pretty well with a handful. Like, you then have to have the separate supply line for DMRs though, because this is what always happens, right? Even the Cold War, we see 7.62x54R still stays in effect. NATO stays in effect, even though you start rolling in 223 or 5.56 or whatever. There always ends up being a full size rifle cartridge. It just goes into more specialty use. So, if you're trying to have, because the World War I mentality was we need one cartridge for machine guns and infantrymen, then yeah, something like the FAL is actually not a bad way to go. Although, if you're going to make that argument, you could then turn around and make the same argument for the G3 with more efficiency on the rollers, but then you're dealing with steel stampings, which is something that they were not good at in World War I. That was not a thing. So I feel like they could do the FAL, but they probably couldn't do the G3 exactly as they're designed. Not that you couldn't do the roller lock system or anyway. I don't want to get that whole fight. But I hope I answered that actually.
What non-warring country had best infantry weapon in World War II? We haven't gotten into World War II yet.
I mean, if you're talking about just an infantry rifle, the only neutral I can think of that was using a semi-automatic rifle in World War II would be Sweden.
Oh, Swedes?
Yeah. What was the Swiss? No, Swedes, because they had the AG-42.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And then that's it. I can't think of another neutral. No, I can't think of another neutral that had a semi-automatic rifle, so I guess it would have to be the Swedes. Because, unless it was...
Oh, they didn't say semi-automatic.
No, they're saying who had the best infantry weapon, and I assume they mean firearm because we're a firearm show.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably some mortars that are cool.
That's what I was
You know what I mean? But I don't know that. I'm not an equipment man. I only know firearms. So if we're talking about firearms, then just by the category of being a semi-automatic rifle that works and is accurate, then yeah, you got to go with the AG-42 because unless somebody can bring a better semi-automatic rifle, it's going to skunk all the bolt actions no matter what.
That's true. You're not wrong.
So...
Okay, good point. Let's do one more question. We'll take a pause. Would the United States have stuck it out with the Krag leading into World War I or still end up adopting a Mauser-style action even if they hadn't experienced the Spanish 1893 firsthand in the Spanish-American War?
That's tricky.
I think we actually talked about this in the episode.
No, I don't think we talked about how the Krag might have lasted. That's a very difficult question to answer because the Spanish situation really did shake the U.S. rifle
dramatically.
design. If we look at other countries, Norway, and really, who adopted the Krag? Norway did, Denmark did, we did.
That's it.
Out of those three, the other two stuck with the Krag forever.
Mm-hmm.
They never gave it up.
No.
Both of them only gave up the Krag for surplus arms from other countries because there were so many of them laying around and they were just so available and cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, they also weren't making new guns. So this gets very difficult because until we became involved in World War I, there probably would be no need for us to move off the Krag.
Yeah, why would...
And the fiscal conservancy, the conservative fiscal nature of the U.S. at that time, there is a strong chance that they would have stuck with the Krag.
Yeah, if nothing had pushed them to actually need something better.
Now, what they would have had to do is they would have had to standardize the Krag. They would have they would have had to lock in hard, which we kind of are already doing. The 98 was very much like a firming up of the Krag. Everything before that's like, they keep changing it, stop. We got to have one Krag.
But we need a different site change. We need this site, and we need this site.
And to be honest, even after the Spanish-American War, we kept changing sites on them because you have the 1901 site and the 1902 site. Like, they just kept poking the stupid Krag. And so that gun is the biggest nightmare in terms of parts interchangeability in U.S. history, I swear to God.
It really is.
But when it came to mass manufacture, we may have ended up in a situation in which something like the 1917 took over everything like that. Because if we had held the Krag until World War I, trying to mass produce Krags would have been an utter nightmare.
Yeah, that would have been terrible. Actually, this next question kind of goes with that, and then we'll take a pause after that. Why didn't the U.S. try to facilitate surplus Krags to any of the Allied countries?
Because they would have kicked us in the teeth.
They would have been mad.
They would have been pissed. Probably none of them would have had 30-40 Krag in stock. I guess we could have given it to them, but at that point, did they need them? Like, we didn't... The problem is we really want to limit the number of rounds on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And when it came to World War I, for the Allies, other than the regions that are sort of initially caught up in it, so like Romania and Serbia, so 7mm, 6.5, those sorts of cartridges. Whenever they got rearmed by France and Britain, they got rearmed in 8mm Lebel and 303. And when you look at the Allies, it's just 303, 8mm Lebel, 303, 8mm. And even when the U.S. first sends troops out, it's 303 and 8mm Lebel.
Oh, yeah.
It's not until large numbers of U.S. troops come over together under U.S. command to a degree.
Things like 30-06.
Does 30-06 show up?
Yeah.
And then we're still just at that. So this idea that we're going to introduce 30-40 Krag on top of everything else and a gun that is incredibly hard to fit parts for because no two Krags are matching.
Mm-hmm. Seems like a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's take a pause for the camera. All right, next question. He's going. You are the new Albanian defense minister. You have been authorized to hire both a weapons designer and businessman from anywhere in the world to come in and create the new small arms for the glorious Albanian armed forces. Who would you choose to cause the most damage to the Albanian cause while still delivering at least something to their armed forces? When is this?
Yeah, what year?
Because...
Is it now? Because I don't really know any arms designers right now. I mean, I know guys that are engineers, but they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd just grab some dude off the street if I was now.
I mean, but he'd have to be able to deliver something, apparently.
Is this like a World War I and World War II thing?
Not sure. It doesn't really have any... And the original... This is me condensing it. The original one didn't have any dates in it either.
Okay. And then also I'm supposed to make it bad, right? Like, that's the game?
Yeah, the game is to make it bad while, good enough to seem like something's being done, but bad enough that it's going to trick them into...
So I'm supposed to do a bad job on purpose.
Pedersen.
It would look good on paper. It would be beautiful.
Maybe Ross, and then that will really just take them down a rabbit hole.
No, because I think the Ross could be a good rifle if you just let it finish up. Mm-hmm. Like the engineers could patch that up.
Okay.
But Pedersen is all of Pedersen's designs are extremely hard to execute. They're too smart, which means they would look really good on paper, and then they would not perform well.
Okay.
So, which is what happened every time. Every Pedersen firearm that went near warfare did a terrible job despite being amazing on paper. So, the end.
Okay.
Look, I can do this.
Oh, he can move it with his finger. Yeah. What, that's technology.
This is easier than the thing you were doing.
Buying weapons for a major military. that's what you're doing. Which arms company / arms sales representative / inventor would you like to have try and sell you their product?
Again, no date.
Yeah, there was no date on that.
For modern era, no clue. For World War I, World War II, Browning. Like Browning, the man. Browning Designs.
Will you get a good deal on it?
The problem is going through Colt. That's the issue. Is like if Colt's your gatekeeper for the Browning products, then if Winchester's your gatekeeper for the Browning products, probably not bad.
You don't think so?
No, Winchester could get a lot done back then.
Okay.
But Colt was slow as molasses. So, but the Browning Designs are the ones to go with. They're very efficient. They work. Like if you can get them.
Okay.
So.
Next one. If you had to choose from all the firearms that you've covered on the show, what would you choose for the other person as a dream pairing and a nightmare pairing of rifle and handgun in the context of World War I?
Is this 4 questions?
I think so, technically. So dream
so
pairing,
I have to pick a good pair and a bad pair?
Of a rifle and a handgun. Okay.
Which is really just 4 questions because you're going to pick the best pistol. And worst pistol, and best rifle, and worst rifle. You're just asking what's the best, worst, which I think we've covered. So, worst handgun.
Probably something in... Well, okay, no, wait. Can we do something like the Tranters or whatever, like the 68?
No. Those are way better than the worst handgun.
What's the worst one?
You already remember.
Liberator? No.
What? For which war?
Oh, I'm sorry, World War I.
Yeah.
Trying to think of the worst handgun.
Rice roller.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, you could Reichs revolver that.
Right.
Yeah, 79.
Okay, Reichs revolver, worst handgun.
Yeah, that's...
Best handgun, 1911.
Sure.
Best rifle is, we already kind of talked about this, is like, it depends on what you're doing, but RSC or Remington 8 or...
Winchester 7.
I would say arguably it's either RSC or Winchester 1907, depending on the use case.
Yeah.
And then worst rifle is...
It's got to be dangerous to Vetterli, yeah.
Yeah, Vetterli in 6.5.
Let them explode with the gun.
Or just any of the single shot black powders.
Oh, yeah. Put them with any of those. That'd be fun.
Yeah, like... But that's all you're really asking is best rifle, best handgun, worst handgun.
Yeah. I think that covers that one, though.
Yeah.
Having researched so many revolvers and related patents, I realize we're not saying names with these. I guess that's fine.
Okay.
What combination of components, so lockwork, loading system, grip style, single, double, triple action, etc., would you make up your ideal theoretical Frankenstein revolver? So...
Like ideal for combat?
I guess you're just saying pick your favorites of those setups. So pick your favorite lockwork, your favorite loading system, blah, blah, blah.
So this is the thing. In terms of longevity, swing out's better.
That's what I'm thinking.
But in terms of speed, I still think top rake's faster.
Top rake is technically faster.
So
in
if
terms
I
of
had a
ejection and
well-made
quick
top rake
load.
that I only had to use for a couple of years on a battlefield and then it was done, I might actually go with the top rake.
Especially if you can get one of those like Perdeau loaders or something like that.
That's what I'm saying. You can just chunk and go.
That would be great.
So top rake. Like everything else, it would probably just be a Fonyu lockwork. The only improvement I've known of the Fonyu lockwork over the years is like the MR73 uses a bead system to get you a double action pull that's better. But that's not really saying much.
Trying to think of grip style. Ones that have
That's really where the World War I stuff fails, because so far what we described, a top rake with a Fonyu lockwork, it's just a Webley.
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking of.
It really is just a Webley. Yeah. And then, to be honest with you, the Webley Fosbury, they made I can't remember if it was 7 or 8 shot, but they made an extra capacity 38 auto revolver.
That was pretty good.
For the Fosbury. Now, Fosburys are not good revolvers, but I'm not going to lie. If I could have gotten an 8-shot revolver and 38 auto... Done. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, the 38 auto...
That's a superior revolver right there, because you don't have to worry about it.
Right, it's enough knockdown. It's not going to blow my hand over like the 4.55. It's going to have plenty of oomph.
Yep.
So, it doesn't have to be 38 auto. It could be some other cartridge, but you get the idea.
But that would be superior off the bat.
I mean, you could do it in 38 special. That would have been available at the time. So, like a 8-shot 38 special, or even just a 6-shot that was a more mild frame size, that's fine. Good top rake, speed loader would be great. Fonyu style lockwork is perfectly acceptable. Really, that's about it. It's weird. It's weird how the ideal revolver really isn't that far from what was available.
That's true.
It's we're kind of describing, except for the weakness of the cartridge, we'd be describing like an Enfield number 2 Mark 1 or a Webley Mark 4 38. But those were done with 38-200, which is 38 Smith & Wesson pressure, which is a little too low for me. And the 6-shot limitation is a little annoying, so it'd be nice.
Yeah, to have a 7th.
Even with the bulk, to get a 7th or 8th round would probably be kind of worth it.
Yeah. Because you want it to be something that can compete with, say, one of the little 32 pocket pistols or something like that of the era.
But I'd probably I'd try to get the grips closer to like a Colt New Army would be nicer. Like, New Army grips feel great. The bell shape on those, and they're very narrow. Mm-hmm. I would do that. That'd be really fun.
Okay. This next question is kind of the same. If you can create the ultimate complex and practical but mechanically cool revolver, what would you do?
Fosbury's up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is.
What doesn't it have? That's the thing.
What doesn't the Fosbury have?
Yeah, because top brakes are cool. I really wish people would bring back top brakes. And then it doesn't have to be any good. Like, it doesn't have to really do anything all that great. I kind of like the Tranter style. It'd be fun if somebody did...
Tranter look, yeah.
Now I'm talking like Civil War Tranter with the cocking, the secondary cocking trigger. So you pull that back and then you pull, right?
That's pretty rad.
If you had like a Tranter double trigger design paired with a top, although you know what I'm describing a Kynoch. The later Kynoch revolvers did that. Oh,
you are, yeah.
But they weren't as cool. I don't know how to explain it. They weren't as nice looking.
The lines didn't look as good on them.
No, they were all bulbous and did weird stuff they didn't have to do. I don't understand why that gun had to be that. I don't think it had to be that complicated. I think given that the Tranter double trigger existed and seemed to work as a triple action lock.
Weird on those two typically. Are they like so weird? Okay. Mm-hmm.
But I really am curious if you could do like a hybridization of a Fanyu lockwork with what? Just because I said Fanyu again?
Yeah. No.
I mean, or a Warrant lockwork would be a good one too. But if you could just do a simpler lockwork, more reliable lockwork, Tranter double trigger with a top brake, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Of all the guns ever designed, what gun project would you have liked to be a part of? Just to be a part of the actual process of designing it?
And implementation of it?
Trying to think. I mean, I would like to be there for the process of understanding why certain choices were made and things like
yeah, but that's not it. This is like, which one would you like? Hold on. Which one would you like to be a part of?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
See, is this a fly on the wall thing? If it's a fly on the wall thing, there's so many that I would like to be there for. I'd really like to see like the German submachine gun trials.
That'd be really neat. Yeah,
I'd really like to see any of like it's weird. I say I want to see Browning, but I don't. What I want to see is whatever Colt was doing whenever he left. Because Browning would come by with ideas and then Colt would refine them. And I'm always curious which engineers did exactly what. Mason gets a lot of credit. Mm-hmm. But then even after Mason, there's stuff happening. And I'm just wondering, or Ehlers. Maybe I'm thinking of Ehlers. Anyway, there's all these guys like Mason Ehlers and the others that are in the background. And I'd really like to see more of what they were actually doing to un-F all the stuff that the big boys were doing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of sort of there's a ton of forgotten engineers that really put their mark on these things.
And just to see what they were actually doing would be a curious thing.
Yeah, which I guess the real trick is I would really want to see, in that regard, I think I'd really want to see the development of the new Navy, New Army then.
Really?
Yeah, and the 78. Like the Colt 78 and the Colt New Navy, New Army. Those two, because there's no one inventor behind them, which means there's no one narrative behind them.
So you mean there was a lot of thumbs in that pie?
Yeah, and it's also not clear. They're just branded as Colt. We're not really sure who did what and what they saw and why. You know what I mean? It's also, especially the lockwork on the new Navy is just so weird. And I would really love to see that evolution, just of them incrementally going, but then we have to do this, you know? That would be a really fun one to see. And I think,
I can see that. And
that's the thing is, like, the ones, it's kind of hard to think of the ones that you'd want to cover because it's all the ones that decisions were made and they were done without a name, you know, without an inventor. Another one like that would be it'd be fun to be a fly on the wall for the Glicenti Financial Guard revolver of like 1901-02 or whatever, which is when the financial Guardia Finanzia wanted to have the Bodeo revolver, and they went to buy them from the government, and Carlo Bodeo went, "Excuse me, I didn't authorize that." And so he starts this lawsuit. So then the Guardia Finanzia is like, "But we still need a revolver," and I guess maybe they already ordered leather or something, or maybe they wanted to be able to use surplus or something. I don't know what the deal was, but they really wanted it to be the same shape as the Bodeo. So Glicenti dusted off the Chamelot Delvine, but modified it to have an auto-rebounding hammer and a different ejector system. But on the outside, you look at it from the outside and you go, "That's a Bodeo." But then you open it up and you go, "What the hell is this?" And it'd just be kind of funny to be a fly on the wall with them going, "That stupid idiot, now we got to do this," and then just trying to cram it in there. It's kind of funny. Like, I would love to see that.
Fair. I'd kind of like to see them trying to do some of the machine gun work, like the Madsen or something like that, just to kind of
just watch them being like, "Okay, and then we just need this farm to go like this so that it doesn't get in the way."
I kind of like to see somebody just be like, "What the hell are we doing here?"
It's like a game of Mousetrap.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a pause for the cameras.
Okay.
All right. Next question. You're given $10,000.
Okay.
A piece to buy a gun. So we each have
$20,000.
Okay, so together it's 20, or do we each
Because
get to
I'm
buy
bigger
our
than
own?
her and I can take it.
Technically, he could. He could make me flat in an instant.
I can flat her out.
The catch. It
One
must.
day I have kitten and he in a bag, so I flat him out. If anybody recognizes that quote, I'll be amazed.
Okay.
Yeah.
The catch. It must have been manufactured after 1990.
Oh, I don't know.
Crap.
What the hell? You think I know a gun after 1990?
1990?
You can't even buy anything cool for $10,000 after 1990. That's after the ban. That's post-ban.
There's nothing.
Nothing good was made after, 84?
Sure, there's something, but I don't know. I got nothing.
I mean, just like maybe a high-end double. Take it over under. I like sporting clay.
Okay, just buy like the nicest one you could find.
Not the there's ones worth more than that, but like a good it's just like a decent over under. The problem is I'd have to try a bunch of them. Because I don't have the money. I don't try them on. But I think I'd probably just start looking around at like, okay, what can I get that's like, and I'd have it fitted for my length of pull and everything.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be fun.
And then I'd take it to sporting clay, and then I'd feel like an asshole every time I missed a shot. Whereas right now, I take garbage weird shotguns to sporting clay. And then when I miss, I go, what a weird garbage gun, because I can just blame it on
that
the
one time we took it
insanity.
out and had the NIDAR sight on.
Oh, we were killing it with the NIDAR.
That was fun.
Yeah, the only problem with the NIDAR was extremely long-range fast shots.
Yes.
Like, if the clays are moving hard, fast, and far away,
That's
holy crap, are they kind of hard to do even with the NIDAR.
But that was fun. I go.
I guess a high-end shotgun.
Yeah.
Because it's the only thing I really have any utility for post. It's
Personally.
cool stuff, but it's like, I hate to say it, but it's almost a waste of money because you could get a super cool rad whatever, right? And there's a ton of stuff in the battle rifle or assault rifle market, and I know everybody's going to yell, but I'm putting the quotes up. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And there's some cool stuff. None of it's quite $10,000 that's worth it. You know what I mean? And realistically, you can get the same performance out of a fairly budget AR build, which is really what's kind of keeping the market in its place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's almost too much money. I know what I'd do with a couple thousand if I had to spend it. It's like, you have $2,500, buy like a cool AUG. You know what I mean? Something like that. But $10,000 is just a lot.
Finally ran out of Red Bull.
For one gun.
Now I'm entirely out of Red Bull.
Okay. Is there any other thoughts?
Honestly, I'm with you on the shotgun front because that's something we would actually use. Because I couldn't even sit here and think for a second, that's the only thing I would use that might be manufactured after 1990 currently.
Even that, though, I'd probably feel guilty, though. I can't imagine, spending $10,000. My car cost $4,000.
Yeah.
So.
I like that car.
Yeah, it's a good car.
Okay. The Magic Goated Gun Fairy.
Is it goateed or goated?
I think it's goateed.
Goateed.
Okay. The Magic Goateed Gun Fairy will wish into your hands one gun in immaculate condition from a population of guns that was rode hard, but it pumpkins after you're done filming. What is it?
So it's just like a gun I can wish for, shoot it for the show.
Yeah.
And then it goes away.
That, I think it's supposed to be a pumpkin after you're done filming, essentially. So it just turns into it literally
Does
pumpkins.
it go back to crap, or does it...
I think it literally becomes a pumpkin. Because we're talking Cinderella.
Yeah, but does it start as a pumpkin, so it starts all rusty and beat up, and it turns really nice? And then when we're done filming, it goes back to being rusty and beat up?
No.
Or does it disappear?
Wait. Maybe it turns into its is converted from its original components. So all the steel or whatever that would go into it, it's just in original components. It turns into the gun, and then it reverts back to its original components whenever you're done.
Well, regardless, if I can wish for a gun that shows up that I can't get access to normally, regardless for filming, it's going to be the Fedorov.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there's not one in private hands in the U.S. There was one that I've heard of that was in a, I believe, government collection, that the collection itself has kind of gone off the radar and nobody seems to know where that gun is.
Right.
I don't know if the gun went off the radar, but the collection went off the radar.
Right.
So I don't know where there is a Fedorov right now. If you've seen one popped up in a museum in the U.S.,
please let us
let me know.
Yeah.
Because I hear whispers, but no one's actually said, "Oh, it's right here. You could look at it."
Here,
because
camera picture.
I would very much like to sit down and cover that gun at some point.
That'd be great.
Anyway, that's about it.
All right. The studio is on fire. The wall of guns behind you are in danger. What 5 guns do you grab?
All
Not
the ones that are
ours.
on loan.
Yeah.
How many are on loan right now? More than 5. Crap.
We're going to have to pick the top of the 5.
The most expensive 5 that are on loan.
Can we each carry 5? Because then we can at least have 10.
Like,
top 10.
I mean, to be fair, we're looking at the corner of recent loans. We're not thinking about how many of these are on loan. That are just guys that live here.
Yeah, because they can't see the corners. They only see what's right here.
Everybody gets excited about the wall. There are a couple of hoarders that don't have room for their guns that just ended up in my studio as props, essentially. Like, this
isn't even the pistols. This is just the rifles.
Yeah. I have a number of other people's firearms here, so I'm grabbing everybody else's firearms before mine.
As many as I can fit. In my pants, all over me, whatever I can do. You have the ability to move...
by the way, in case anybody's curious on that front, because it might be something people are interested in.
Yeah.
Because we are in a hurricane zone, we have had to evacuate the collection for hurricanes.
We have.
And we have a system.
We do. We actually did very well with that with just 2 people.
We have a stockpile of moving blankets.
Yes.
And what you do is you have a big-ass Suburban that is empty in the back, and you lay down one blanket partially because it folds over several times, and you just rack rifles nose to toes, you know what I mean, back and forth like a zigzag.
Yep.
Fold it over, rack them again, fold it over, rack them again, new blanket, rack them again, and you just do that, and you just build this pile of padded rifles.
Yep.
And then pistols are a lot easier. You grab the rifle boxes that you don't have any rifles in, and you just slot them into like 3 or 4 rifle cases.
Yeah, we did that pretty quick.
And you throw them in the back seat, and then one Suburban can hold everything. And it's a really nice evacuation system.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So if you're the kind of person that has a collection and lives in a flood zone of some sort, you should go ahead now, before there's a problem, and buy some moving blankets and keep them somewhere where you can get at them in case you need to evacuate.
Yes. All right. You have the ability to move through time. From the beginning of time up to November 11, 1918, you can choose 1 rifle and 1 pistol from World War I to bring with you to assassinate the world's worst people. What would you choose?
This is his best again.
So, yeah. Some sort of sniper rifle, I'm guessing, if it's for assassination purposes.
Is it the standard issue? Is that what we're looking for?
It's from World War I.
Okay, it has to be from the war, because that gets rid of all the suppressed guns because they didn't really make it into the war.
No. But wait,
There was
hold on. You
experiments.
say that, but World War I era, so you could argue it just didn't...
If it's not limited to the war, I'm going to go with basically any decently long-range rifle fitted with a Maxim silencer, because that's great. The handgun silencers weren't as big. I can't remember if a 1911 was fitted with one early or not, but it doesn't matter. I'm taking a 1911 because it's the most modern handgun of the war. But realistically, what I'm thinking is, and it's something I can't answer because I haven't gotten behind these scopes, whatever sniper rifle has the best glass.
Yeah.
Because whatever sniper rifle has the best glass, all of them are going to have reasonable ballistics for long-range shooting.
True.
And so if I'm using long gun, I'm using it from far away. And if I'm using the handgun, I'm using it up close, so I'm going to get the best, most reliable / ergonomic handgun I can get my hands on. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It gets harder the closer you get to 1918, though, because, like,
I don't know why I just did that.
by the 1880s, you're already getting into the zone of, like, even having a good sniper rifle is really not that helpful in terms of getting away.
Oh, this next question is kind of the same. You're at the last stand of the Alamo. Which rifle sidearm from World War I do you take with you?
Okay, so you're going to take a 1911 handgun, and I'm going to take, like, whatever sniper rifle I'm going to find that has the best glass so that I can shoot from the furthest door.
Whatever one that was.
I mean, in theory with the Alamo, it depends on what stage of the Alamo we're talking about. You could want, like, a rifle with a higher rate of fire, and so Winchester 1905 comes into that zone. So I'm basically either looking for a scoped, reliable sniper rifle of some sort, and unfortunately I don't have enough experience to say which one. Or, like, if I'm thinking close quarters, I'm thinking Winchester 1907 with the 351. I think I said 05 a second ago, but 07 with the 351 cartridge. Because that's about the best semi-automatic at close range I can think of from that period that's still a rifle.
With a decent amount of ammo.
Realistically, I would take a submachine gun.
Oh,
Because the Alamo's not as big as you think it is. They're coming over the wall.
But it's saying rifle / sidearm.
Yeah, I know. They're not saying submachine gun, but I would take the submachine gun.
Okay.
Because a couple mags of submachine gun ammo, and you just wait for them to come
It's
over.
got sidearm ammunition.
There's only so many penetration points, you know what I mean? And so you could just...
Done.
You know, just burst. That'd be awesome.
Let's see here. Should you find yourselves eventually doing a series on the development of the MP44, what are the chances you'll be able to cover both variants of the MKB42 and shoot them?
Probably very high.
I mean, have we had any offers directly for them?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, there we
World
go.
War II stuff's a lot easier. The trick is just getting everything in order. It'd be a little weird to go straight into Dutch Sturmgewehr.
Yeah.
Like, it's just... we should probably cover the lead up to that a lot more before we just dive into it. So I'm not saying that it won't be midway through covering some of the World War II stuff, but I do think we probably need to reiterate for at least a couple episodes, hey, guess what's back? All the crap they had in World War I, only they made it shorter. Like, we just really need to kind of hammer that home a little bit. And so that's actually going to be like the calm before the storm, I think. And so I'm going to be like, all right, well, they took the Mauser 1889 and they made the 8936, but they also came out with the 1935. And everybody's going to go, oh, God. And,
It would be so sad.
But I mean, I still find it interesting. But most people are just going to be like, yeah, we get it. It's shorter. And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the Car 98K. I'm going to just tell you guys ahead the plan. Are you ready? I'm going to do the Car 98K, and everybody's going to show up and be like, blah, 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 blah. And in the middle of that episode, I'm going to be like, all you people leaving positive comments are the same idiots that hated when I did this for the 8936, which is the same thing. It's just a shorter version of the other goddamn thing. Like,
how do you really feel about it?
It's just weird. People are like, oh my God, Car 98K. It's just a cut down Car 98, or a Gewehr 98. Well, technically it's a cut down Car 98B, but regardless, it's just a friggin' cut down Mauser. That's all it friggin' is. And everybody just drools, right? But if I just go do a cut down Belgian, they're always gonna be like, hey, who gives a crap?
It's gonna be okay.
Okay.
It's gonna be okay. All right. If you can go back in time and spend, say, a day talking to one person of significance, historical, political, scientific, technological, etc., ask them questions, grill them on the what, how, why, who would it be?
Oh, that woman that was supposedly Colt's wife, Samuel Colt's mistress wife thing.
Wait, is this because if you grilled Colt, he would lie?
Oh, he lies.
But if you talk to his wife, you think you can get something out of her?
The one that supposedly remarried Von Oppen.
Ooh.
That's what I'm saying. Because wasn't she the one? Isn't that the one?
Yeah, I think so.
There's like Colt's, or is that the kid? I can't remember.
No, wait. Maybe
was that the daughter? God, I can't remember now. The story's all mixed up in my head. No, I think it was supposedly Colt's.
But would she actually know the story?
Wasn't it supposedly that Colt's mistress wife, who he denied being his
having
wife in the U.S.
Also denied having the son.
Yeah, the illegitimate son. And then she
married
supposedly married Von Oppen, I thought. No, she married the brother who died or didn't die. Right? And then I've also heard that she went back to Europe and met Von Oppen. And that's how Von Oppen got the job with Colt, right? So that woman...
You think it was blackmail?
I don't. Well, to be fair, if I could find that, if I could go talk to that woman, then I would know. Especially if we're talking towards the end of her life, I would know: is she the same woman that? Just by the fact that she is or not, is not the same woman, I would know that right away. Whether she's the same woman that actually was both with Colt and then with Von Oppen. I would also be able to ask her about what the hell happened with the brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could ask her about whether or not she actually married Colt, whether they had the kid. I could ask all these things. And I'm sorry it's all salacious gossip, but I don't care.
It'd be interesting to know.
That whole mess is effed, and I'm really curious.
There's no other way to know.
Yeah. But to be honest with you, if we're talking about firearms, if we're talking about not juicy gossip.
If we're talking about firearms and not juicy gossip?
Right now, you know who I'm thinking?
Who?
Francot.
Oh, you just want to find out more of your...
The latter Francots. Because there's just... Francot in Belgium touched...
I'm surprised you didn't say Fonyu after everything.
I heard that there's a Francot collection that I need to go look into. Of like notes and everything else. I'd love to get access to that. No, because Fonyu is just this one guy that finalized the design. He's not going to be able to tell me who did everything first. You know what I mean? He didn't solve all the problems.
That's true.
Francot, however, saw everything that happened in Belgium and a lot of what happened overseas. Like Francot was this empire that knew everything that was going on for a long time in a period in which things are poorly documented. So Francot would be like a really key thing to understand. I've heard that there's a collection of notes from Francot that are out there, but not sort of rebound or documented well. And I'm certainly not seeing any leaks. Most people talk around Francot. They don't actually talk. Even the stuff, there's Francot books out there, and I bought them, and they clearly are not taken from notes from Francot. They're just observations from the outside in. And so I would really, if anybody knows of an actual like Francot internal notes or histories or anything, I would love to get my hands on that. It would take a bit of work to translate all that probably handwritten script in French, but I do not care. That would be a very interesting place because the number of things that got reproduced by Francot, I mean, just about everything you can think of. Martinis, revolvers of various minor designs, insanely little one-off niche whatevers to full military contracts. It's the most forgotten arsenal that I know of. Like, nobody thinks about it.
Francot, the forgotten arsenal.
Well, yeah, when we told everybody in the Ottoman episode that Peabody was like one of the largest arms manufacturers in the world for like 3 years and then just vanished. That's surprising. But imagine being one of the largest in the world for decades and producing all of these guns quietly all the time, oftentimes producing them not under your own name for contracts elsewhere. Like, Francot is pretty wild, but nobody thinks about it. Anyway.
That's your boy?
Yeah, I'd be curious about Francot.
Oh, you did it too. You did it too.
Okay.
You didn't use the screen.
Oh, this is getting familiar looking.
All right. You're at a Chinese dinner and your favorite Chinese buffet, and you get to pick one historic gunmaker to dine with. What question would you ask them? So you have to say who you'd take and a question you would ask them.
Gunmaker?
One gunmaker to dine with. It has to be the gunmaker themselves.
Okay, it would be the last of the Francots, and I would ask him, where did you put all the records?
But he'd have to be a gunmaker. No, it says that he'd have to be the gunmaker.
He's a gunmaker. The last of the Francots was a gunmaker.
Okay, I didn't know.
Who would you?
Yeah, that's my answer. No, I'd probably. No, I'd still probably chat with Fonyu just because I want to chat with him to see what happened. If there was any sort of deal between him and Warnant for
what was going on.
Yeah, I kind of want to find out.
Do they have to answer honestly? Because then you could do like you could ask Rudolf Schmidt questions because he's.
Oh, then just take Colt and he'll have to answer truthfully.
Schmidt knows some stuff. I swear.
Take Colt and then you'll know your answer.
That's true. But you can only ask him one question though.
That's fine. I'll figure it out. I'll do a run-on sentence question. And then okay, these last two are kind of together, so we might be able to throw them in. No, it looks like we're going to run out of camera time.
Camera.
Okay. All right, next one. It kind of goes with the last ones. Are there any historical figures you have researched who you love to go out for a drink with?
You're reading these like literally. You need to add words that they did not add.
Yeah, okay. Are there any historical figures who you would love
to go out
for a drink with that you've researched?
You go first. I've been answering a lot.
I mean, to be honest, it's ones we've already talked about. That's the same thing.
Samuel Colt's mistress.
I mean, at this point,
just for the gossip.
I want to know the gossip.
Think of somebody else.
Okay, I guess maybe. I don't know. I guess Pedersen to kind of just see. I'd like to pick his brain. Bad? Why is Patterson a bad
He's a
one?
womanizer. You better be careful.
What?
You better wear special underpants.
I will.
He got in that thing with that woman. I don't know if we covered that in the show.
I don't know if I'm his type. I might not even been his type.
Have I covered this in the show, actually?
I don't know.
I found a bunch of scandal documents about Patterson that are like nowhere online. Like nobody's talked about it, but he got into this tryst with this woman,
Okay.
and it is strongly implied that post coitus he offered her interest in his Remington Model 10. What would become the Model 10 shotgun,
Okay.
and in doing so, she took it as a promissory note, and he ended up in court because it's not just that he promised it; he doubled down on it later, which was really stupid. But he ended up sued in court and lost. But then he went into like a appeals process that lasted so long that the woman died, and then her heirs were still suing him. And I don't even know what happened after that because I got bored at that point. Like I was like, okay, well, I got the juicy part, but. Yeah, you should be careful because he will apparently bang you and offer you patent rights but not pay.
I'm not going to sleep with him. It just says I'd go out for a drink with him.
It depends on how many drinks, I guess. What kind of patent he's offering
I'm
you.
going to be careful.
Just so you know, his rifle does not take off.
Thanks. Yeah. What about you, mister?
Hiram Maxim, right?
You want to get him liquored up?
You got to admit, Hiram Maxim's got to be like the one with the best stories. Because not Browning. Browning's just gonna be like, I don't know. I just think he's very like dry, and he's gonna be in his own head and everything.
Do you think he just has whiskey?
I don't know what he drank, but the point being is though he's very dry.
Okay.
And he's not the most verbose person.
Okay.
I feel like Hiram Maxim, who had done all these different things, would just like.
You think he'd just burn out?
Think about it, like, is he even with his boiler-powered airplane thing? Like, you could just. There's so many things you could just let him tell you that you would be so entertained.
Fair.
Hiram Maxim would be a big one.
Spare room and an empty corner in the workshop. Which gun designer would you choose to live in your house?
None of them. I don't want anybody in my house.
Yeah, no.
Like weirdos in my house.
Wait, do we have a spare room and an empty corner in our workshop?
No.
Do we have a workshop?
No, we don't.
No, I mean, I'm saying we have this suddenly.
Whichever one pays the most rent and is cleanest. I don't really care about that. Like,
and keeps to his little corner.
I got a history show to make. I don't need to be inventing guns.
Oh, God.
Whichever one's quiet, keeps to himself, and pays the rent. That's all I care about.
Well, hold on. He's a gun designer, but can we get him to do just some basic gunsmithing?
Yeah, who's good at repairing?
Let's do that.
Make him repair other people's shit.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know because this is actually it's a weirdly personal question because it's kind of like the question earlier where it's like who would you what design process would you want to watch? And we kind of answer that, but this one's not actually saying that we're watching the design process. It's saying that he's pooping in my toilet. And that is a very specific kind of person.
Now, hold on. We don't know if that spare room has a toilet in it. So we may...
It's my house. It's my toilet, whether it's in the spare room or not.
Now, hold on. I
want the one with the best hygiene and the quietest habits.
I think this is magically gaining us a workshop, and there's an empty corner and spare room in the workshop. I think we are magically being gained a workshop in this.
Okay, I don't know.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. It's getting late. Let's keep doing.
One that speaks English would help.
That would actually be good. You're not wrong. If countries were limited to one type of weapon, what weapon would you choose for World War I? Grenades.
Yeah, this is actually really specific. Artillery?
Oh, artillery. Yeah, that'd be superior.
Tanks? Maybe? I don't. This is a little too. That's a bad call. You don't want to be. If it's one type of firearm, semi-automatic rifle might be able to see you through.
Yeah.
Or just a bunch of light machine guns. I don't know. It's too hard. I think it's an unrealistic question, unfortunately.
Bunch of submachine guns? just all MP-18s across the board?
You might could get away with that.
Yeah.
It'd be really brutal when you were closing the distance, but then as long as you could close the distance. But then if we're saying weapon, then the other guy's got artillery, you're screwed.
Yeah.
But if you only have artillery, then you can't hold ground with infantry.
No. That's what I'm thinking.
That's
grenades.
kind of the problem.
It's grenades, and you could basically.
The problem with this is you're guaranteed to lose if you choose one weapon because what solved World War I, and we've said this before, combined arms strategies. Like not just having multiple weapons, but using them in the right order.
Right.
So That's you're gonna lose. I can pay. All of them are equally bad in that regard.
Given that he probably graduated from medical school and entered British Army service in early 1878 and was invalidated out in late 1880.
Like crap, he served for 2 years?
Yeah. What would be the most likely firearm Dr. Watson would be carrying during the Sherlock Holmes stories? I mean, a Tranter revolver?
No, if it was like a big full size.
Yeah. Would he carry something smaller then?
If he's trying to get it compact at all, this gets weird. If it's compact in British, he's carrying an RIC or some equivalent thereof. It could be like a Tranter 1863, 1868. They made those very compact.
They did.
But the RIC and the Tranter 1868 are so closely related that 6 to 1 have to. They're both Birmingham style guns with Tranter lockworks.
Yeah.
So he's probably carrying a Birmingham trade gun, or he's carrying something Belgian. Because that's the other end of the pocket market at that time, a lot of Belgian imports. As a matter of fact, a lot of Belgian imports were finished and branded as Birmingham trade guns at that time.
Okay.
So you could have ended up with like a Hill, HILL. Just things like that. There's various, I see Warnants appear in the British market. I see a number of sort of Lefaucheux derived or Francot-derived revolvers that appear in the British market at the time inexpensively. So it kind of depends. It's, the initial thought is, well, he's in Britain, so it must be British made, but...
That's what I went for with the Tranter.
Yeah, but the problem is the revolver market, even at that time, assuming that it's a British-made revolver because you're in Britain is a bit like assuming that my appliances are made in America today. They're not. No. Like the discount market's China. Discount market then was Belgium.
Fair. And not yet Spain. Spain would eventually become that.
To a degree, yes, but not necessarily in the British market.
No. All right, next question. What do you think is the most advanced infantry rifle that could have been produced using World War I manufacturing technology?
A FAL. Or something equivalent there.
We did talk about that before, yeah.
There's very little they couldn't do. To be honest with you, the things that they couldn't do manufacturing style would have had to do with metallurgy. So I'm not sure what the steel grades were at the time and how available they were, but you might find a limitation in terms of doing something like a Johnson bolt. For a cartridge as powerful as 223.556, they probably could have made an AR-15 style bolt with the splines. I'm a little curious as to whether or not they could make a spline bolt that would take a beating from 30-06 because I don't know the steel quality that well. I'm probably like radically underestimating the quality of steel that they had available, but I've also seen what they did make and some of it's pretty soft, so I'm not sure. In terms of machining though, they could machine anything by World War I. The question is, would you want to? There's peacetime rifles and wartime rifles, and one's a lot simpler than the other. But we were joking about the FAL.
Yeah,
there's nothing about the FAL that they could not have made. I mean, there's other than the plastic handguards that are available on some FALs, but I guess the big problem is it would most resemble an Israeli style FAL because they wouldn't have a plastic buttstock, they'd have a wood buttstock.
Yeah, they would have gone wood.
They wouldn't have a plastic handguard, and they wouldn't have a sheet steel handguard either.
No.
Because press and cut sheet steel was a little bit after that effect. The closest you get is like the Shosha, which is kind of a press-ish steel thing.
Stamp.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as detailed as, say, like a German-style handguard for a FAL.
No.
So, you'd have a more wooden front end on it, but really that's it. Skip the pressings. You could still have sheet steel bent into shapes.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have these pressings,
No.
But otherwise, yeah, they could have done a lot of stuff. Really, the limitations were about efficiency of design, and a lot of it was gas. Like just
how to handle gas mitigation.
Yeah, being able to be flexible with the gas was pretty wild for some reason. Like they were really struggling with that and timing the lockworks and things. But I mean, look at the Lewis gun in the U.S. It took forever to get one launched in the U.S. in 30-06 because they forgot to send over the drawing that included the adjustments they made to the gas bleed off. And it's like, this should have been fairly obvious to the U.S. team that they should just adjust that, but you have an entire team of engineers running around not figuring it out for months. So clearly, the thing that we all kind of take for granted is that humans don't think of things until they think of them. So, and that seems silly, but...
No, you're not wrong. What rifle caliber created post World War II today, so between World War II to today, would you run in a bolt-action infantry rifle in the Great War?
NATO?
Yeah. I guess that, NATO. That'd be fine.
I mean, I guess Creedmoor is kind of cool. I know. The problem is I'm not that up-to-date on the very modern stuff, like the boutique stuff.
I'm not either.
So, realistically, it's like NATO appears, and then it's all Wildcats, and then today there's a handful of cartridges that are catching on in various ways, but and if I'm using a bolt gun, I'm not really going to be I'm not getting any real advantages out of something like a 5.56 or 7.62 by 39 or anything, which arguably 7.62 by 39 might not be post World War II. Yeah, I guess just NATO, which is really boring because it's basically the 7.5 French of NATO. You know what I mean? Like it's boring answer, but it's probably the most accurate answer unless I want to do something really boutique.
Fair. All right, let's see. Okay, there we go. If the U.S. had adopted the Pedersen toggle-locked rifle instead of the M1 Garand, what do you think the M14 would have looked like, or would it have simply been the FN FAL? They'd have been really unhappy with that.
Well, we probably would have lost the war, so there wouldn't be no of either of those because the toggle lock did not work.
No.
It needed all sorts of funky ammo. I mean, I don't know that we would have lost the war, but there have been a lot of cursing. The problem is it would have been a ground-up redesign, so you're kind of throwaway in saying would it be the FAL is accurate to the sense that the U.S. would have just abandoned the platform. I guarantee you they wouldn't have kept that toggle lock outside of World War II.
They would have immediately ditched it for something.
There's no way a toggle lock would have lasted after World War II because it was like the last consideration of it before the war. And so you wouldn't see a toggle lock variation of the M14. You definitely wouldn't see the M14 because, to be frank, the M1 Garand is a extremely simple rifle to the point of being bad.
You're all gonna love the Garand episode.
I feel like I went on this rant very recently. I can't remember where I went on it. I can't remember if we did this for the podcast or in here.
You did talk about it in the podcast, but you did also rant to me about it a little bit. So I think you're merging all three together.
I tried to not repeat myself, but then I don't remember who all I've talked to. The Garand is, in many ways, I swear we've had this conversation publicly, but I'm just going to go with it.
Okay.
The Garand is, in many ways, is very similar to a bolt action converted to gas operation, whereas the FAL is much more a gun that was designed to be a semi-automatic. It's not some modification of a rotating bolt action gun, nor is the G3 or any of these other sort of Cold War era firearms. It's and even the World War II stuff. You look at the AG-42B Youngman, Lundman. You look at the SBT-40.
Yep.
You look at what became the FN-49, the MOS-44, those sort of things. They have a lot in common with each other in a lot of ways, but they don't have any connection to bolt actions in the way they operate.
Right.
Whereas the Garand is clearly a bolt action with a cam track on it on a rod.
Yeah.
So the Garand is really behind the curve in a lot of ways. But again, we're the U.S., but that's going to be a whole thing one day that I'm going to make everybody mad about all over again like I always do. But sorry, there's a reason why it didn't stick around. And there's a reason why nobody likes the M14 by comparison to all the other Cold War rifles, which is because of all the things that it shares in common with the Garand.
Right.
Like, the thing about the Garand is that it was semi-automatic, and it worked okay. And that's all it needed to do to skunk everybody else at that time. But quickly, everybody went, oh, we should do that, but better. And it wasn't that hard to get it better. So the question is, though, if you're talking about the FAL being adopted instead of the M14 at all, just because of the legacy of the Garand, I don't necessarily think it's the Garand's legacy that makes it be the M14. I think it's the U.S. just being the U.S. and on their own track.
They do.
And not honoring their promises because, I mean, one day we'll do a FAL episode, but there's a whole thing of like the FAL wasn't even supposed to be in NATO, and the U.S. is like, no, we need it to be at least this. And then like, okay, but you'll take it if we do that? Yeah, we totally will. Okay, we did it. I don't know. like it was just being a pain in the ass.
All right, I think we can do one more before we have to take a break.
Okay.
Everything goes perfectly for C&Rsenal, and you are able to hire help. Aaaand can now get all his work done in a standard 40-hour work week
Holy
and
crap, how
has
much help?
money to spare.
Bull.
What one thing would you buy to do a primer style video on, assuming cash is not a problem?
All this other stuff was unnecessary. All you had to do is like, what if you had enough cash to buy something for a primer?
Cash and time.
Oh, time.
Yeah, cash and time. Like you also have time.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can basically have someone else giving you a hand and you can do whatever primer episode you want on something, whatever you want.
Boy, you really did. Then you put me on a timer for 3 minutes to do this.
Yeah, I did. I put them on a
Do
short
you have anything
timer.
in mind?
Well, I'm thinking it's something that you could acquire that money is not an issue, it sounds like, right?
I'm actually in the process of doing a repercussion that is planned for like over a year from now.
Oh, okay.
And I have sent so many emails. Because I want to do something that will require me to kind of make a reproduction.
Okay.
So it's like a repercussion, and in order to cover it, some of it will have to be not me personally, but guys that I'm working with making some stuff to do a thing. So I'm already kind of doing this insane crap anyway. But what would I buy?
Yeah, I could. Well, if you have money to spare, I'm assuming money's not really a problem then, right?
To be fair, if I could outright buy something right now, I'd probably go track down one of the actual potato diggers, because this is a recurring problem.
Right.
I keep getting offered Marlin potato diggers, which are mechanically distinct, and I'm actually not even sure how, because it's not well documented. So any day of the month, I can just find a Marlin trainer potato digger. They're everywhere. Every potato digger you've seen in person is probably a Marlin. I need a Colt OG, either 1895 or 9514 potato digger. There's a few in museums, but I haven't had the time to get in and like work. And this is the time and money thing, so I guess this is where we're going, right?
Yeah.
I would need to be able to actually lay hands on both and take them apart to make sure that I could use one to substitute for the other. And I really would prefer not to have to do that. I'd prefer to just go shoot the dang 1895-14 in particular is the one I'm the most interested in. And no one has come forward in all these years with an actual Colt potato digger. Or I believe Marlin did make like the 95-14s before making their, I forget if it's 17 or 18, but they made a trainer version, and on the same equipment, I believe they did the aerial guns that are derived from that are piston operated, which would also be cool to cover. But again, I really want to hit the actual design of the first one first. And given the material available, I need one in my hands for my animator to get a hold of, and all blah, 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 blah.
I'm going to give my answer after the break.
Oh, okay. What's your answer?
My answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably do a Villa Perosa. But one that has only had...
How many of those are transferable? We'd have to buy the one we handled, probably.
Yeah. But
I don't want that one because Ian broke it. He didn't actually break it. I just wanted to see if I could cause trouble.
But I'd get it set up so I can mount it on a bike.
Ring-a-ling.
Yeah.
Ring-a-ling. What if we could...
I think that one's doable.
You're wearing it. You're wearing the cycle of violence.
What? Oh, yeah.
Your answer is wrong. Your answer is that you would want to borrow the potato digger.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because we could literally make the cycle of violence.
Okay. That's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You did win.
Pack the potato digger.
I don't think you could ride the bike while shooting this. I think you could ride
They're
while
not
shooting
designed
the
to do that. You're not supposed to ride the bike and
I think
shoot
you could literally set a rig of Villa Perosa in such a way that you'd be able to steer with the Villa Perosa while shooting and still riding.
You're full of crap.
I think it's possible.
I would rather shoot a 1895-14 and 30-06 than a Villa Perosa from a bicycle while riding it.
I don't think you're capable of that.
I know, because the mass on that and the cartridge and the
You'd be too
recoil,
front heavy.
I don't care, because I guarantee you, with the rate of fire and the way that is, I could hold steady and actually be able to not like send them into the air and shoot old ladies, right? That we were laying in the dirt trying to run that Villa Perosa. And what did it do?
But yeah, that's the thing, is that it wouldn't have the ability to do that. I'm thinking if you fix it on the bike in such a way, you could just literally use the spades to steer, and then it would be fixed. But then
how do you control your vertical?
Oh no, you don't control the vertical. You shoot one straight.
Oh, look at that. No, with that weird pintle mount, I do the potato digger more than Villa Pros. Villa Pros was terrifying. So awful.
It's great.
It's the worst gun. Those are jammed all the time.
Yeah, it kind of did like jamming.
Although I suspect the reason that gun was jamming so bad was probably we should have taken it apart and stretched the mag springs.
Oh, yeah.
But we just didn't. It's not our gun.
No.
We're on range, but...
But that's what I would do. Next question. Interesting. What is the type of physics involved in determining what firearm load has the potential to knock a steel plate over with greater authority?
Oh, I know this one. More faster and more heavier mean more hard.
Not science people.
What? To be fair, I don't know. Somebody that's big into physics and math will argue with somebody else that's big into physics and math about thermal ballistics. And there's guys that do this all day in and all day out. Not really our field.
Unfortunately,
there's
no.
guys that do this for a living, and you can find them. All I need to know is massive velocity. You know what I mean? Like, and how much of which matters, I'd have to look at actual results. There's a little bit of the composition of the cartridge, whether or not it fragments rapidly or spreads all of its force into the target. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
And then,
if you're getting into the weeds. But just in a general, did it knock big man down? It's going to be...
Also depends on the steel plate angle and things like that.
Yeah, and also steel plate's different from a human target.
True.
Because steel plate is going to react to mass and velocity almost... You'd have to get really fast or really dense, not even massive.
Yeah, really
it's not
dense.
mass, it's density.
Yeah.
But in other words, you'd have to, in order to penetrate steel, you have to exceed such a level that it kind of gets beyond, it's so far beyond what we're actually talking about when we talk about shooting at people or animals whereas transference of power on a small bore high speed projectile can over penetrate and then you don't actually deliver a lot of power. So that's a whole other argument. So in terms of steel, just go faster, better, be heavier, better.
Yeah.
In terms of people, be heavier, better usually. There's very few exceptions to that.
Yeah.
However, well, I shouldn't say that. It's heavier if we assume lead.
Yes.
If you're making it more dense, so it's just heavy, but it's not any bigger. Like bigness is a part of this. Then yeah, making it overly hard means you over penetrate. But soft, heavy, slow on fleshy bits does a lot of damage, but not so much on steel.
No.
So
Kind
I'm
of
sorry.
splatters on the steel.
This is big science time with Math Man and Beard Face.
All right, next question. By now, you must have an extensive list of biographical databases, booksellers. Bibliographic databases. Sorry, booksellers, museums, and curators' websites, etc., to run through during your preliminary research stage of a firearm's history. How about sharing some of your favorite resources? We do share the books at the end of the episode each time. At least that is already automatically.
I get asked, people are like, I'm trying to look into this. Do you know where you can point me? And I'll tell them. The problem I have with just sort of blanket going, everybody go here, is it's not a big deal when we talk about like books.google. Yeah. British Newspaper Archives is great, but you have to subscribe. There's Hothy Trust. A lot of stuff that doesn't turn up on books.google will turn up on Hothy Trust. Most people know about JSTOR. You know what I mean? Stuff like that's online. A lot of people really underestimate the Library of Congress and what you can get if you work with your local librarian to look things up. And then it becomes a series of patent offices and things like that, but you're going to have to know them by country. And to be honest with you, I mostly work with guys who go to those patent offices, and they're guys that just volunteer to the show. I can't give you their names unless you're really a dedicated researcher and want to pay for their time like I'm having to. You know what I mean? And then even then, that's not really their job, so they may or may not say yes. That's a personal thing. Right. And then when you get into the used book market, there's a problem because any market that's a secondary market, a used only market, if I say it or if I reveal it, then I add competition to what I'm doing. Right. So if I go tell you like these are the best places to find used books that you don't know about, then all the prices of used books in those markets are going to go up to the point that I'm actually spending more of my patron money chasing those used books. Not that I'm trying to be like, oh, you can't have it for cheap, but just like I put in the time, I found the weird place to buy it. I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to buy it for cheaper. So
That's paid off a few times, at least for research purposes.
Yeah, but if you're working on a book or something, if you're really hustling at something, like it depends on how much somebody's really doing for something too. And don't send me an email that's just like, I'm writing a book about the history of the Garand. Could you please hook me up with the curator here and the guy here and blah, 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 all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And the only evidence that you're working on a book about the Garand is that you've told me you're working on a book about the Garand. You know,
right.
Have you written something before? Do you have unique research notes or perspective that you're bringing to this? Do you have any sort of outline in place? Just something for me to go on other than just like, I'm a guy on the internet and I want it. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the big emails I get all the time, I want to make a reproduction of this. Give me all the measurements for it.
Yep.
What are you talking about? The fact that you're asking the question tells me that you
don't know anything.
Because that would be like, it would take me a week of doing nothing but measuring a gun to get you all the measurements on it. Like, What does that mean?
Got nothing.
Like, what? Reverse engineering a gun for production is like, you need a team of people. Like, what are we talking about here, you crazy person?
So many caliper measurements. All right, next question. What other firearms-related subjects do you wish people would do research on and or cover in books, academic journals? I'm trying to think what other research. We kind of missed some of the stories on...
biography work would be great.
Yeah, because we don't really get to have a lot of detail on that sometimes.
I really recommend that everybody buy, I believe his name was Gorenstein. I'm going off the top of my memory, which is always great. First name started with an N? Nathan?
Neil?
Neil? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Gorenstein's...
Nathaniel Appenshaw.
Stop. You're doing it to me now. His book on John Moses Browning.
Yes.
Is I think it might be the first actual good biography I've read of a gunmaker. Mm-hmm. I've read a ton of bad ones about Colt.
Right.
And even the quote-unquote good ones that are enjoyable are just so embellished with writing and extras that I'm like, okay, but there's no evidence that he sighed satisfactorily while drinking a brandy.
Yeah.
Nobody wrote that down. Stop. Like, you're adding exposition to a story that now makes me doubt what you know and don't know. You know,
right? That just gives doubt every time.
Right. So, like, he dimmed the lamp and blah, blah, blah. Like, did he? Where did he write I dimmed the lamp? He can't even spell lamp.
Did you take the line to the time to say, I dimmed my lamp?
Nobody said that. Stop it. So,
also, did he spell the whole sentence correctly?
And I get asked to do this all the time. It's like, you should do a biography on this guy, that guy, and the other guy. And the answer is, how the hell would I do that? You would have to find, like, all of their personal letters wherever they might exist.
Yep.
I mean, that is an exhaustive, decade-long process for... I mean, I doubt the Browning story took that long because there's a Browning museum. His notes are in a very particular collection. As long as you can get past those gatekeepers, you can access them. Mm-hmm. And then the FN stuff is available in a place that you can go to. But there's a lot of guys out there that you'd have to really fish around to get all the data. So you're talking about very, very long processes to do these. So
yeah, I think that'd be really good, though.
Yeah, I can understand why the economics don't work out on it, though.
No.
But it is the thing I wish for more is actual biography. But everybody asks me to do it, and I'm going, guys, to be honest with you, it's so sketchy. Like, the data that we have is so sketchy that I really, I barely get the little bit of biographical data that we put in the show because I still kind of doubt that because it's just that sketchy, usually. Right. Sketchy.
But is it?
Okay.
What are the biggest screw-ups you found in your research for World War I arms? So in testing, distribution, corruption, etc.
Yeah, everything Colt.
Yeah.
Just Colt and World War I was just...
I kind of find that the wheels tend to turn real slow.
Yeah, I think we said this before. The biggest screw up ever is probably the lack of U.S. adoption of a machine gun, and the lack of the U.S. interest in the Lewis gun, especially because it's the superior light machine gun.
Drag their heels on all of it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, they come up with a decent enough automatic rifle, being the Browning, but they really needed a light machine gun,
right? Which
the Browning proved out to be bad at. They came out with a good medium/heavy machine gun in the Browning 1918, but it came too late. It's one of those things where it's like, if you could go back and hit them over the head, you would tell U.S. Ordnance to get their...
their butts in gear.
Yeah, get it out of their keister and get going, because just the heaviest Maxim they could buy, which was stupid. Then the daylight gun, which was okay at its adoption and then obsolete within a couple of years. And just machine guns was a mess for the U.S.
Yep.
Some of the other blunders would be Russia, who correctly assessed the machine gun situation before the war and then did not implement a system in which they were fielded. The machine guns were so precious that they just wouldn't put them up on the front line and therefore lost a lot of ground with cold machine guns that they were afraid to use.
Hoarding them like dragons.
Well, nobody wanted to be punished for losing one.
Right.
So just getting out there and using the machine guns would have helped Russia a lot earlier in the war. And then Russia itself, just politically, is a huge freaking nightmare.
It's a pretty bad one.
Oh God, there's so many problems in Russia alone.
That's pretty good.
I think it's about, I mean, there's other little itty bitty things here. There's always something, but boy, those were some of the biggest ones where it was like, when it's something that's so obviously in your face and yet you just don't do anything with it. That's the problem. Like, making a bad call because you don't know is one thing. That's kind of a blunder, but you've got to be pants on head, like ridiculous to not have machine guns rolling in World War I by the time the U.S. goes into the war.
Right, yeah. Let's see. What are some of the funniest stories or events you've come across during your research? I mean, shoot, we talked about Colt. God knows how many times. Talked about Ross. God knows how many times.
Everything Samuel Colt is hilarious. And I'm sorry, it's also why I would really like to see somebody do a more modernized biography on him. Because so many of the guys just repeat Samuel Colt and they don't check him. So that means you're listening to a narcissist autobiography just written by somebody else, which makes it entertaining as crap. I mean, it's so funny to read Samuel Colt biographies.
Yep. We thought Ross was the king of the crazy, but no.
Oh, yeah. Charles Ross is an utter lunatic, too. That was great. Hiram Maxim is half lunatic. That's fun to read about.
Yeah, that's true.
What was the other? Oh, God, I can't think of his name. The guy who managed to get the Maxims done for Germany. I can't think of his name now. Or Maxims, Madsens, the Madsens. Maybe that's what I did to you earlier. Did I say Maxim instead of Madsen, maybe?
I think so.
Oh, they were known for hours yelling at us.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name now, but it's the German agent that managed to get the Madsens, and then he was sent over to the U.S. as a saboteur.
It's not Opum. I keep thinking of him for some reason.
No, it's going to drive me crazy now that I can't remember it. Anyway, Penguin Publishing did a book. It's actually kind of hard to find, but you can find it in the used market. And it's like, oh God, what's it called? Like The Dark Saboteur or something like that. But he has an autobiography about his time as a agent in the U.S. during the war. And it is fascinating to read and just kind of like funny, but also like, but also funny, you know? There's a lot of humor in it. It's actually really a good book, but oh God, he's gonna kill me that I can't remember his name. You guys check out the Madsen episode, and you'll be able to pick up his name and obviously his book. But that is really entertaining stuff.
Fair.
It's really bothering me. I can't remember, but it's now like 12:30 at night.
All right, one more question for pause of the cameras. Where does the American myth of the individual rifleman come from?
So I'm not sure specifically what this guy is referring to because
I'm not either, actually.
The U.S. had a marksman obsession. And like a one-shot, one-kill obsession that I think is what he's referring to.
Yeah.
But because he says myth of the individual rifleman, I don't know if he's trying to refer to a myth or like a legend of some guy that did really well at this. But I suspect he just means what happened with this American obsession with the individual rifleman and therefore giving up on automatics, which, by the way, might play into, like, a lot of people kind of blame that on why we didn't get into machine guns like we should have during World War I. A lot of people blame the BAR debacle with World War II, where we went into World War II without a good squad automatic because we were so obsessed with just making the infantry rifle better. So we're like, we're going to make the best semi-automatic infantry rifle. Okay, but what about squad automatics? No, everybody will have semi-automatic infantry rifles. It'll be better than a squad automatic. Okay, right?
Yeah.
And so this marksman obsession is not uniquely American is the problem. You see it a lot in European countries all the way up until World War I. And then everybody kind of goes, ooh, we actually ended up using some machine guns and stuff a little bit at the end there. and combined arms, so we're going to back off that. Some people got real smart with it by the time of World War II. And you really see that you see a lot of people experiment with submachine guns, and then you see towards the end of World War II, you see the beginnings of intermediate cartridges to solve the rifle/submachine gun conundrum.
Okay.
And then you're really moving to volume of fire. The U.S. held on to individual marksmen longer.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because we end up, post World War II, we're the ones that are pushing for the larger cartridge still. We're pushing what we're talking about with the M14, right?
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And maybe that's where he's going with this.
Maybe.
But it's really that the U.S. is sort of the last one out of the pool. It's not so much that we were uniquely obsessed with it. It's just that we stuck with it a little bit longer. And a lot of it might be the artificial win in World War II, where we did a great job mopping up in World War II, but we did it because of material, vehicles and weapon systems and blah, blah, blah.
I wondered if it had anything to do with the Garand or anything like that.
Well, yeah, the Garand was, everybody's like, oh, we love it, right?
Yeah.
And it's true when you compare it to bolt action rifles, it's great. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a squad automatic. And by the way, we do fix that. We start to kind of eventually go, oh crap, we really need like a light machine gun with a high rate of fire, blah, 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 blah. But as to why we clung to it for so long, it was probably just the puffery of success. Usually you learn those lessons through defeat. And since we succeeded and all the other equipment more than made up for the firearms, because the small arms really weren't what was winning the war, it kind of got to be a blind spot. And it just, why would you update it if you didn't realize you had a problem?
Right. You're not going to.
Yeah.
Not until you have to, which is that is the American tradition.
There's also you could pour money, it was very easy to pour money into better airplanes and better tanks and better whatever and get much bigger results than pouring money into better machine guns when you really weren't fighting direct wars as often as you think you are.
Right.
Until kind of wander into Vietnam and go, oh crap, or we really need to update the infantry arms, you know what I mean?
Right.
So.
All right, let's take a pause for the cameras.
Sure.
All right, on to the next question. All right, Finnish Mosens. Looks like this guy ran across a blurb about them being chambered in 7.62 by 53R rather than 54. He couldn't find a definitive answer as to on how to tell him if the rifle's in that chamber or not. Could you please delve into this level? Well, I already know the case length. I think it's supposed to be like a little under 54 millimeters. So
yeah, you can interpret it as 53
right?
or 54. That's not, the case length isn't going to be your issue. It's a rimmed cartridge. Your headspace is off the rim anyway. I am stretching my knowledge. It's
been a while since you've done reading on this, right?
Yeah, I haven't read a Finnish Mosin book in I don't know how many years.
Before C&Rsenal,
yes,
right?
before the videos, that's for sure.
Oh God, so that would be, it's at least 8 years.
Okay. Wow, I'm old. The Finnish issue would be more of the bullet. And I can't remember what the differences there are. You're probably going to have to look that one up. But I do know that Finnish rifles are identified by the fact that they were marked for a Baldi Spitzer specifically. And I don't know if that's because the gun was approved for that Spitzer or if it was actually reshaped in some way for that Spitzer, because I'm just completely off of really old, dusty, hazy memory. But I don't think case length is your issue. It's going to be bullet and powder load and things like that. And even with the powder load, you're probably looking more into a problem of whether or not the sights are zeroed for that load at longer ranges. So look in the bullet direction.
Okay. Floating the hypothesis that in a declaration of war on a foreign power, a state is actually also declaring war on its own population. I'm wondering if the first use of a lot of rifles and sidearms, etc., of the World War I period was actually on these said own populations prior to the outbreak of the war, of course.
It depends on how old the arm is, though, because it's not necessarily the declaration of World War I meant that rifles were drawn on the populace immediately. And it would depend on the population, too, because drafts weren't instituted right away in, like, Britain or the U.S.
Right.
So you'd have volunteer movements at first, which means there's no real need to point rifles at anybody. I don't know. The first places you'd see rifles pointed at their own population would probably be areas that were less unified, like Austria-Hungary, where you have people that aren't really all that into the idea of going to war for the national pride.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you think so?
Yeah. That's going to be your first problem.
I could see that with the own internal conflict of that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's no question here.
No, there's really no question.
This is just a statement that I realized. You didn't give us a question. You just said that you're wondering about it.
But he's wondering about it.
That's outside the small arms design scope, realistically. You just basically have to look for riots and suppressions of riots and things.
Okay.
But generally, we stuck to the conflicts themselves because we don't always look for those unless it's sort of the first time that the firearm was fired, which we do see on occasions.
Yeah.
Although I can't recall which one. I do remember there's a few, I believe like the Belgian stuff.
Yeah.
Was first fired in anger at riots because they weren't necessarily seeking an international policy of aggression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you use foreign language books in your own research? Yeah, a lot.
Just so you know, I think you lowered your mic or something. You're
I did?
way down.
Okay. Beep.
Yeah, there you go.
How's that?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm better.
Let's do that one more time on the question.
Okay. In case that was quiet.
Yeah.
Do you use foreign language books in your own research? Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Word.
Are we quiet across the board?
When you look down, you're okay.
I'll just look down from now on.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm just double checking. Okay, sorry. I just don't want to lose the audio.
No, it's all good.
This is C&Rsenal Live, folks.
Yeah. Well, it's not
welcome
really.
to the
It's
podcast
just,
where we argue about the audio every 5 minutes.
well, I haven't yelled at you before you put your mic, so you must be doing okay. No.
We don't use
No,
foreign language
yes,
books?
we do. We use
yes.
a ton of them.
Answer the question.
So
I'd say easily half of our resources are in foreign
that's
language.
what I'm trying to think. I think it's possible it's about half now because at some point, at the very beginning, they were all English, but then you realized very quickly, a lot of what I need is actually not here in America. So you had to reach outside.
I spent a lot of time working in foreign language.
What do you think was your first foreign language book? You think German or French?
It's probably German. The Germans have very detailed books, but they tend to be more technical and less cultural, I guess I would say. The French stuff tends to be more cultural than it is technical in a lot of ways. So it's all over the place. But I would probably say German. German tend to be the ones that have technical books. Yeah, Americans.
See, did there? I stuck my own question.
If there's a gun, there's an American either book or article written about it. The problem is the quality is usually poor.
Right. I still want a good Merwin Holbert book. That'd be great.
It's very interesting. Your average American firearm article, especially the historical ones, are usually here. You know what I mean? Whereas the average German or French article is here as an article. They're actually good, if not here. And then your average American book suddenly jumps way up, you know what I mean? And then the German and French ones are somewhere in that same range. Like it's once you're in the book zone,
yeah,
and it's post 1990, you're doing all right on all of them. You know what I mean? If it's pre 1990, the French and German ones tend to still be pretty high for the most part, all the way back until, whereas it suddenly falls off for the US and it's just pretty terrible, all the way back until the 40s when they all fall off. And then like the 40s and before are just a nightmare of who knows what's going on. Like they're schizophrenic as all get out. So largely the research community is sort of leveled. The academic approach is sort of leveled off and it's very good. Okay. But at the high end. But it seems like because there's not as, I guess maybe there's not as much writing going around. In the US, you can just stamp out. I mean, literally, while the cameras were cooling, I just had somebody DM me that an article in English is using one of my images and citing another article and image that just cited it to Creative Commons. And I'm like, God damn, so now I gotta go chase my copyright again. And both articles are fundamentally wrong on so many points, it's ridiculous. Because I just glanced at them and went, wow, you guys really didn't know what you're talking about while stealing my crap. And that's
the best.
They're written in English. You tend not to see that as much when they're written in German, French, and even Russian. They tend to have done a little bit more of a careful job of what they're doing whenever I encounter them, at least. So,
but yes, no, a lot of what we're collecting, and unfortunately, being in a foreign language, we have to then take the time to get them translated as well. On top of that,
yeah, lots of OCR work.
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
And emailing authors. I do a lot of emailing authors where I go, I don't understand what the hell you said here.
And a lot of them, there's been a lot of positive response on that front. We've had made a lot of friends that way, actually.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm fighting with my glasses today.
I can tell. You're fidgeting.
I've done that thing. I don't know about you guys that are glasses wearer. Do you do that thing where every once in a blue moon, for no reason, all of a sudden, it hurts where your glasses have been for the past 5 years that never hurt?
Oh, yeah. But
And
mine's usually on my ear.
Oh, I don't. All of a sudden, just right here on the side of my nose, my glasses have decided that they're just going to be painful right there.
Now you showed everybody your small
They have
eyes.
small eyes like a crab.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How do you keep track of extra magazines, as in what magazine goes with what firearm?
I have little binders, and I put all the magazines in there in chronological order, separated by the publisher. Mm-hmm. And then I'm trying to...
It's been a slow process, but he is
trying to keep a spreadsheet with all of the decent articles in it so that I could find them. Mm-hmm. There's a defunct magazine that was put out by C&Rsenal for British stuff that I managed to get all the copies of, and that I have completely indexed because I needed that data, and it was very reliable. Gun and sword collector is a pretty good one. They have a more recently mixed group. I don't want to be too mean on anyone, but for the past couple years, all the authors were doing real tight jobs. Mm-hmm. Now they've added somebody that I don't really trust, but Gun and Sword Collector that usually does a great job, so I'm trying to index their articles. Thank you to the gentleman who I can't remember his name who wrote the Nagant article in Gun and Sword on my brain is locking down. Luxembourg revolvers. Because that was very lovely and it augmented my knowledge too late for anything we were doing, but thank you for writing it anyway.
That magazines that Boss is handling.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head though. I'm blanking on that.
Boss is handling?
Isn't it Boss?
Oh,
no.
Boss Martin.
Yeah, Boss Martin's.
Yeah. Can't think of the name either. He does a lot of modern too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boss Martin's, he is an editor for a magazine over there, but it's all in Dutch.
It's worth the translation.
There's a beautiful magazine. Well, there's RMAX. Everybody that's watching this who cares about this stuff should subscribe to RMAX for the cost, for what you're getting, for the quality is very high. Mm-hmm. I would definitely subscribe to that, and especially because if they can break through, if they can get enough subscriptions, then it's just gonna, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Danny's a wonderful man.
Mm-hmm.
And then in other foreign language is I don't remember what it is in Danish, but it's the Danish Arms and Armor Society or whatever it is. They have these Arburger yearbooks. I don't know how to pronounce Danish. There's a Danish collector society, and if you are Danish or read Danish or are willing to just translate Danish, they give you a digital copy and a physical copy when you become a member, and they have some very wonderful articles in there.
Yes.
It's a bit of a high-low mix as well, but there's just stuff in there that you will not find anywhere else because it's such a weird place. They cover Scandinavian things that nobody else talks about. It's cool. I like that journal too.
Definitely.
But this question had nothing to do with print magazines, and I have really played out the joke. As far as firearms magazines, I just put them with the firearm. I don't have a lot of spare mags, unless it's a modern firearm. And then if it's a modern firearm, my spare mags are put where they belong. So, like an AR-15, magazine is going to sit with the plate carrier, or it's going to sit where the spare AR-15 magazines go because there's so many of them.
Maybe they mean you might have any spare mags for something less modern, more old. So if you had a bunch of spare Lee-Enfield mags or something like that.
Suze owns a Frommer Stop, the nicest Frommer Stop I've ever seen, and it came with 2 matched magazines and a holster. And she bought it at a pawn shop for $100, and everybody will get mad at that. And even then, that was a crazy price. So that gun sits in the drawer with the other guns. Leather doesn't do as well with the materials the guns do with. So if I have the holster for the firearm and it has a pocket for the spare mag, that spare mag's sitting with the holster that's sitting in the holster place where all the holsters go, so that they're safe. If I don't have a holster, it just stays with the firearm. Like it just sits right there. Or if I have a bulk number of them, so for some godforsaken reason I have a bunch of spare magazines for the FN 1908.
Yes.
Or wait, no, 07.
Yeah.
The Swedish 07, FN 1903. God, I'm all over with the dates tonight. So The FN 1903/Swedish MO7. For whatever reason, I ended up with a bunch of bags for that. So I just have a plastic baggie with them all in there with a marker on it that says whatever, and it goes in the box that's full of spare clips. Because I do have a box that's just clips.
It's a nice sizable box.
Yeah. And if it's a rare clip, Japanese gripper clips, things like that, they go into a separate baggie that's labeled in the cardboard box. Because
that way they're not...
I can find them in there.
Yeah.
This is high tech.
Oh, so high tech. Had the Remington 51... I did love the magazine talk, though. That was pretty good. Had the Remington 51 been developed a decade earlier, do you think the 45 version would have fared in the U.S. pistol trials?
How do you think?
How do you think? Sorry.
Making you read these is great.
No, my brain. Words.
Do you remember what that thing is?
No. I was going to have to Google it real quick while you were talking about it.
Yeah, it's like this floated chamber recoil system.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, it didn't test well in 45. It does okay. You notice the production models didn't even do 9mm. They did 380, I believe.
Ooh.
And so they're already doing a blowback cartridge. There's some interest there. I actually know an engineer friend of mine that's really big into that cartridge.
It's going to take a second to pull it up while you're talking about it.
You're not going to find it.
Okay.
You're going to find the 380 version.
Oh, okay.
Unless you pull the books.
That's fair.
I have an engineer friend that got really big on that chamber just to see what would happen. And he ran the numbers and was playing with it. And I'm not an expert in this field, but he didn't like what he saw when trying to put it into a 9mm. It was curious, but he just, by the time a Browning lock work is so efficient that just go with the Browning lock work instead of all this craziness that's not really getting you the same space. Okay. It's not doing as well. So as much as the 51 has this sort of like legend behind it, it starts to get in that realm of the Savage. It's more secure of a theory and practice than the Savage 1907 with its delaying thing, right? It's better than that, but it's not as good as just having a locked breech like in a Browning style system in terms of efficiency and results. And so if it had come sooner, could it have competed?
Maybe.
I doubt it, because the problem is it would have had to have shown up in like 1900 to compete. Because the tilting lock, well, when it was the parallel ruler style with the double links, it probably could have competed. But by 1905, let's give it that far. When they go down to the single tilting, when they go down to the single hinge point for the 1905s, I think that's when the Browning became the go-to gun. Okay. That was the moment of sublime creativity where it became so efficient that it was just like, no, we're doing this. The problem became ergonomics. So after the 1905, everything is ergonomics. It's not anything to do with the locking system. And we'll see that more in our Colt series, actually.
Sure, yeah.
But it turns out the correct answer was Browning lock and Luger frame and call it a day. So.
Okay. Well, let's take a pause for the cameras.
Oh, okay. You know, while we're talking about that, the test of knowledge thing.
Yeah.
I was at the automotive store a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And some girl behind the counter, it's like me and my buddy hanging out, we're talking to Southerners. So girl behind the counter is just chatting at us, we're chatting at her. Something about firearms comes up and she's, oh yeah, my dad's a gunsmith, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh really? Like what kind of gunsmith though? She's like, oh, he could do anything. And I'm going, okay, this is the daughter. Yeah, right. And I'm not trying to I don't do that thing where I assume the other guy's an idiot. Instead, I'm just trying to go through an unreliable filter to find out this guy's skill level.
Right.
Because I want to know everybody that has good machining skills in this county.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? If you're in the state and you have good machining skills, I want to know you because there's so many things we want to get done, right? So I'm going, really? What kind of guns? And now we're here because we want to know. And this is coming in handy lots of times in our world, just talking to people. So she's like, well, he's actually coming over. We're going to go get dinner tonight. So he's coming over in like 10 minutes. I was like, oh, well, I'll just hover and talk to him, just see what he's actually about. I was not impressed is the short answer. But he decided that I was shitty because he's just like, so wait, what do you do? I was like, oh, I'm a firearms historian, essentially. Like I talk about the history and blah, blah, blah. And I could always use help in the gunsmithing world. And so just on the introduction, right? He goes, you're a historian then, huh? When was the 1911 invented? And I went, well, what? Like the U.S. service 1911? And he goes, yeah. And I went, 1911. He goes, wrong, 1910. And I went, what?
What are you
I was
doing?
like, no. I was like, that would have been the iterative previous model, the model 1910. And he goes, well, yeah, but that's when they finished. That's when they invented it. And I went, well, no, that's insane because the 1910 is just an iterative change from the 1909. And then the 1909 is just an ergonomic change from the 0709, which is really an abandoned project off of the 05 modification. And so I'm just like, he's like, and I was just like, why would you quiz somebody on something that you don't even...
I don't know. That's really weird.
Right, you're like, hold on, you said you didn't say the concept, because if you're talking about the concept of the tilting barrel, then it's 1900, or if it's the concept of tilting barrel with one link, it's 1905-ish or something. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about?
Lord.
So,
man, somebody needs a better hobby.
Right, but it's just one of those things where it's like, and I'm just going, what are you talking about? Like, it's like a trick question, but he didn't know he didn't know what he wandered into. Meanwhile, I don't know. I think he just assembled ARs or something.
That's about right. Next question. As you branch out into other eras, would you consider making future episodes using reproductions or clones of guns that would otherwise be unattainable in the same vein as the repercussion series? For example, something absurdly expensive like the FG-42. No, I don't think so.
No, not unless it works exactly the same way.
That's the problem, is that usually they don't.
They don't.
At all.
I mean, if you have a direct clone of the FG-42 that is select fire, well, boy, that's a whole other thing.
Oh, yeah.
But select fire. Mm-hmm. Okay, sure, we can work with that. But
I've never heard of one.
I get this a lot because it's just like, hey, what if they got a hold of one of those, like, Sturmgewehrs, but it's chambered for 7.62 by 39, and it's semi-automatic, and you're just going, it doesn't work the same way. Like, it just, the mechanism has been changed. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm worried about having a Marlin potato digger versus a Colt potato digger. I think we can answer the question of whether or not I want the actual... And to be honest with you, I'm going to be honest, I make the show for this, like, 1% of people that really care.
It's like 1%.
I'm not... The number of people who watch our show regularly and don't get it is kind of high. Mm-hmm. Because they're in it for this casual... And I don't mean regulars in every episode and they're watching everybody.
No.
But they keep an eye out, and when it's interesting, they clue in, right? Which is why you see these episodes that have lots of views versus...
We've literally been told by so many people, it's like, yeah, I kind of just don't really watch your show, but I saw you had this one episode on it, and that was great.
Right.
And I watched that one episode.
Or they'll watch like just the ones that look are all the American stuff or whatever. There's regular watchers who are not every episode viewers. And even in the every episode viewers, there's a number of people that are really kind of skipping around. Uh-huh. But we're actually producing the show for the 1% of people that want to understand something down the narrowest line we can get. They want to really understand it.
So for the other yous.
And to be fair, they're unsatisfied.
Yes.
Because what we are is we are the closest they can get to laying their hands on it. Mm-hmm. And so for them, we are trying to conduct as honest of information as we possibly can.
Right.
Without distorting it. And so...
Or polluting it.
That's why repercussion kind of works, because we put it all in there. We're like, well, percussion guns are pretty easy to do reproductions of.
Right. And
we are basically selling the episodes as a tour of a modern available product that represents a historical one. And I see where you're saying, well, why don't you do it for the FG-42? But the answer is that's such a weird niche market and not really an established thing like the whole percussion market. You know what I mean? And also they work differently. So A, it's not a whole market, and B, not really. And B, it works differently. At least with the percussion guns, are the dimensions a little off? Yes. Is the finish a little off? Yes. Is the quality a little off? Yes. But they work the same. Mm-hmm. And so it's a bit of like splitting hairs as to whether or not we discuss one thing or another with those. Whereas with something that literally doesn't fire in full auto, because we get that a lot. We have like, I have this light machine gun, but it's a semi-auto kit. So it's no longer open bolt, it's closed bolt, and blah, 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 blah. And you're going, no, like, especially like the submachine guns, the Stens that have been converted to fire from the closed bolt. That is going to be radically different than shooting an open bolt Sten. Just the mass is totally different. So, no, like... Yeah,
it's just... I think by the time we got around to even potentially considering that idea, we would have to be probably hundreds of years in the future. and have gotten through as many guns as we could that were originals before we considered that.
I mean, I run into problems where, we have buddies that build Stens for fun, right?
Yeah.
Some of them are more careful with their welds than others.
Yeah.
And some of them are more historically accurate than others.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, when we do a Sten episode, I'm going to be borrowing the ones that are either original or they're dealer samples that they've done the welding as precise as they can to the original welding. So that I can say, look at this construction, because specific to the Sten, the welds are kind of the story, actually. Like, the Sten is not innovative except for the part that has been welded together. So those welds actually matter a lot in that narrative.
Oh, yeah.
So just weird stuff like that you don't think is important, but it is kind of important.
Yep. All right, next question. Out of all your gunsmithing projects, which fixes have been the most satisfying or educational for you? So,
Do you have any gunsmithing projects?
I personally don't. The only thing that's been satisfying for me is little projects I've done for you, where I sewed a patch on a hat for you.
That was nice. Thank you. I lost the hat.
He did lose the hat.
May gave me a Christmas hat, and it was like a nice wax canvas hat, and she put a Velcro patch, and I took my recoil rifle syndicate, and I put it right on there, and everybody was like, oh my God, that's rad, and I loved it, and I cannot find it. I swear. Sue says it's somewhere around the house somewhere, and I just somehow lost it in the house, but it's buried if it is. I'm terrified that I take my hat off a lot at restaurants.
Yeah.
Because it feels weird to wear a hat while you're eating. It's just weird. It's weird to wear a hat indoors.
Well, you have
I wear it indoors for filming because, actually, this is interesting. I wear a hat indoors for filming, and I'll wear a hat indoors when we go to gun shows and stuff, because it's the only way you face-blind autists will recognize me.
It's
and
true.
so many of you are happy to see. That's a separate story that we told on the podcast. We should tell that here. But generally, if I'm sitting at a table at lunch, unless I'm like day 3 on just running around, not showering, getting stuff done, or I've been in a hat from filming and therefore have weird hat hair.
It's true. He's going to have weird hat hair.
Yeah, I'm hiding something if I'm wearing the hat indoors.
Wait, hold on. No, he's freshly showered when you see him filming indoors, by the way, so it's not bad.
Yeah. No, everybody thought that I was bald for a long time because of the hat.
It's true.
My hair grows so fast, and we were worried about retakes. The reason I always wore the hat, and now I got hat hair. The reason I always wear the hat for the show, and it became iconic to the show, is because if we have to do a retake 3 days from now, I just shave a little, and if my hair is like an inch longer, you'll never tell. But man, does my hair grow it is insane how fast it is. It does
grow ridiculously very quickly.
Yeah, so that's why we did the hat, because it allowed for us to do controlled retakes, and you guys would never notice. But what the heck was I talking about?
Oh, gunsmithing projects. So I talked about.
How did I start yelling about a hat?
Well, I did. You asked if I had any, and I did the hat.
Have you done any gunsmithing?
Personally, no.
Do you remember working on a gun? I know when you do gunsmithing.
What are you talking about?
When I have to align like 4 things with a pin, and I'm like in the middle of it, and I go, mate! You have to come in.
He just shouts for me.
She has to hold a pin, and I'm going, hold on, hit it. That happens a lot.
That actually, that does. What were you doing?
Oh, it was the
martini.
No, it was the shotgun over there.
Oh, yeah, the shotgun. Oh, my God, that double barrel.
Yeah.
God, that was a nightmare for you.
It's a Savage Fox Model B. Those cheap, they're the slightly better 311.
You're talking about your arm being sore? That's probably why. From that thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
God, double barrels are the worst things to work on. Oh, they're awful. Shotguns in general are so awful to work on. It's amazing. That was
terrible. Well, to be honest, some of the most satisfying things are whenever lately you've been doing some welding projects here and there.
No, that's Henry though. Our buddy Henry's, and we haven't had time because he's working crazy overtime. We have a project going. We've been playing with the gas. We've been playing with the welding equipment. We're trying to figure out sort of hand micro welding for doing some very advanced repairs. The problem is the steel, and even sometimes you can get surprised by iron when you're not expecting it.
Right.
The steel varies, and so poor Henry is having to become a sort of artistic master to do this, and we just have not had the time to put him on it because it's going to take 1,000 hours. He's really going to have to crank through some metal and some old parts.
Does he have the welder?
Yes, or I think it's at our neighbor's house right now. I don't know what he did with it. It's not at our house at the moment, but he took it. Welcome to see. This is becoming the podcast.
Yeah, right. That's why the easier questions are at the end.
In terms of
most satisfying
gunsmithing, usually when I can make a spring work, which is about 50-50.
Yeah.
I'm getting to where I can make springs. I will say I'm suffering in that I need to figure out a good cast steel or spring steel that I can use, because right now you get spring steel, it's very thin. And now that I'm getting back into the 1860s, a lot of the spring steel I need, and if anybody has advice on this, please let me know. A lot of the steels that I need to be thicker so that I can cut strips. And then I need to come up with a really good way of heating and bending them and then retempering them. And don't get me wrong, an oven is on my list, like a proper electric oven for that. But even before that, I'd like to sort out how to sort of torch and bend and everything without having to rely on the oven at first, because they didn't use ovens either.
Right.
And there's a lot of times that you can sort of get away with it short term, and I'd really like to get away with it more before I invest in the big equipment.
Okay.
But steel sourcing is becoming a problem for me because I've never really quite figured out where to get a good, like, let's say making a mainspring for an old side lock or something. And I need to make like a big curved piece, and it has to be nice and thick in order to do it right. There's a number of projects I have that are waiting on me to learn that skill set. I just haven't gotten there. But you know, on after our Colt 1878 episode, I really loved that gun that we borrowed. And I went to a friend's house, and he had tons of these parts kits. Or not parts kits, tons of just, like, parts everywhere. And one of them was a Colt 1878 that was dogged out of time. But I recognized that really what it was is the hand was ruined, but the cylinder was fine. And everything else was there. It was just kind of rough. So I got a hold of that gun. I got some replacement grips for it. And I cleaned a bunch of it up. Although it's still fairly ugly. But it's a shooter. And then there's a guy that made reproduction or replacement hands, and they're oversized, so you have to.
Nice, so you could file it to the right place.
Right, and in addition to that, it has this wraparound spring that's a real pain in the butt. It's a flat spring that you can't just get because it's pinned and riveted and blah blah blah. So on that, I have a buddy that has a laser. So I got the part out of the 1902 that we were using, and I put a piece of cardstock against it and trimmed it out to match without even taking the spring off the gun, because you can't, because it's riveted in place. And then I took that cardstock and used it to create a template in Photoshop, took it to the laser, made it on the laser, finished it up just a little bit with a file against the cardstock, realized, oh wait, we need the rivet hole. So then we had to go back and cut another one with laser and put a hole through for the rivet, and that worked perfectly. And all I did was hand temper it. Like I had looked up what they were doing at the time in terms of heating and cooling, and I was just like, screw it, let's just go for it. And just with a hand torch, hit it just right, did the cooling process just right, apparently, because I put it in the gun and I've cycled that gun dry with snap caps like 1,000 times, just playing with it, trying to see when that spring would give up, and it hasn't lost tension at all. The hand is working perfect.
Nice.
So I have a perfectly timed 1878 that I spent like $150 on. Well, I guess more like $250 because I bought the hand, which is expensive as a gun. And then I went through the whole process of getting it retimed and just gently having to kiss everything into place with Swiss files. And that's really satisfying. I love
Swiss files. Good tool set to have.
Oh my God, yes. Files are, anyway. So for me, and I know this is a long story, but it's just very enjoyable that I have an 1878 that I got on the side from a friend of mine who I love, and then I put time in it with another friend of mine that I love, and then it ultimately ended up working on the first go, and I'm a little proud of it. You know what I mean? And it's a hard revolver to work on too. So I'm just a little bit like, I'm a little bit proud, and I remember my friends whenever I play with it, and I love it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
It's pretty good. Let's do one more and we'll take a break.
Okay, I'm
sorry. All right. Where are we? Will repercussion...
No, don't read that question.
Okay.
Because I'm going to answer a different question that no one asked.
Okay.
Because this question comes in my inbox all the time, and I'm surprised nobody asked it.
Okay.
I get questioned all the time about being a gunsmith. And I have had, I think I've had 3 conversations with Sonoran Desert Institute about this, and now they won't talk to me anymore.
It's true, they won't.
They thought about sponsoring the show a couple times, and every time it goes to the same negotiation point, and then they just kind of ghost on me, which is they want me to sell gunsmithing school, and I say, but you're not gunsmiths from my perspective, which is there's a lot of guys screaming at the TV, right? But you have to understand in the context. If a man who covers stuff from the Civil War through World War II says gunsmith, then his audience is going to hear a very specific thing. And what they are selling would be in that era called an armorer. And I was trying to explain it. I was like, look, I'm going to have to be careful to kind of word this out as armorer. And they're like, And they didn't say we can't do that. They were very polite about it, but they're kind of caught up on it. They're like, I don't understand how this is not gunsmithing. And I was just like, well, let me put it to you this way. And this is something that a lot of people ask me. I want to be a gunsmith and I want to work on these old guns, right? So I'm going to tell you what I told them, and I'll tell anybody.
He's got less than 3 minutes. So I'll be amazed if he can do this.
Oh, I can always reset the cameras. But the first thing you are going to do as an apprentice to somebody that's a gunsmith, other than grunt work, the first thing you're really going to be doing that is actual work, is you're going to be learning to do flat springs and V-springs. And I asked them about that, and apparently they don't do custom-made V-springs and flat springs at all, because that's not what modern firearms do. There's no demand for that in the modern firearms market, because you just buy coil springs. But when you guys hear me say gunsmith, you are going to think that this is a man who can make a proper flat or V-spring. You're just going to think it. And so that should be like a stage 1 craft. So if you're the kind of person that wants to be an old school gunsmith and you're asking me, what should I do? You should spend all of your time and invest heavily in perfecting making flat and V-springs. And if you're the kind of person that can do it perfect and you want to make money at it, by all means, let me know, because I can guarantee you with our audience, we'll just ask people what the heck they need, because I can think of a bunch of springs I need, and you could just make batches of them at a time and sell them for a high-ish price, and then just keep a pile back for whenever people order them years later. And you can make a pretty good business just doing the springs, because it's a lost art that I have not perfected at all because I don't have the time to. So that's really where it's at, is this core basis of springs, and then from there you reach out and do everything else. But boy, just the old school flat and V-springs would be a killer thing to understand.
No, you're not
right
wrong.
now.
There's been plenty of times you've been in need of that.
Yeah, if you're a young man that's looking into getting into this, that's the place to go right now. That's the underserved market. So, and then from there you can get into how to properly restore the metals, properly do reblues, properly redo charcoal blues. Those are things that people are always looking for. You know, like I just got that's like I said, the Savage Fox Model B that's kind of worn out. Those have a my brain just color case hardening. Yes. That if somebody knew how to do it relatively inexpensively, I could strip the gun, send you the receiver, get it back, and it would look nice without it being an arm and a leg, because to go to the guys that really do it now, you spend a lot of money.
And a lot of time just waiting.
Yeah. Or if you're a guy that's already doing this service and nobody knows about you.
Oh, we got to take a break.
Okay, we got to take a break.